Chapter 1710. Although the army-breaking saber technique had reached its peak, Xiaochen still could not figure out the heaviness and steadiness that Yi Zifeng mentioned. He had clearly used his full strength in every single move he made, and his momentum was heavy, firm, and tyrannical. But why did he still say that it was just an empty shell? Xiaochen racked his brains, but to no avail. Perhaps it was really as senior brother had said, he had to find a saber expert of the same generation to spar with. However, in this vast grave sea, Shangguanlei was already the strongest bladesman of his generation. His saber techniques were not a match for Xiaochen at all. If not for the difference in cultivation, Xiaochen would not have cared about Xiaochen at all. In terms of saber techniques, Xiaochen far surpassed Xiaochen. Perhaps the experts of the same generation that senior brother is referring to are existences like me who have comprehended the saber Dao great Dao power. Due to this reason, Xiaochen had no choice but to put aside his cultivation of the saber Dao for now. Xiaochen started to try something that he had never tried before. Refining the heavenly flame and the heavenly snow divine flame. These two flames were primal chaos level existences. This was especially so for the heavenly snow divine flame, which had already reached rank 3. There was no need to refine it for now. What he needed to refine was the heavenly flame. This extremely domineering young attributed flame was only a core at the moment. It hadn't even reached the first grade. The fastest way to improve a flame's quality was to devour other flames. Xiaochen was prepared for this long ago. Currently, he had the peak solar true flame, the purple thunder true fire that came from the purple thunder divine incantation, and the dazzling sunlight true flame that he obtained from the purple sun region's auction. The quality of the three types of flames were all above the 8th grade. It was just that its grade was far inferior to the heavenly flame. The primal chaos flame was the oldest flame in the world. It was said that there was a primal chaos flame ranking in the great thousand worlds. When nurtured to its peak, it would be able to rampage in all directions, becoming a great killing weapon in one's hands. He didn't know if his 2 chaos level flames were on the list or what their rankings would be. Xiaochen did not think about this for now. He took out the Dragon Phoenix Cauldron. As he looked at the familiar appearance of the Dragon Phoenix Cauldron, Xiaochen's thoughts drifted. This cauldron had followed him for many years. After hesitating for a moment, a flame appeared in Xiaochen's palm. This was the infamous heavenly flame of the Kunlun realm. With a gentle blow, the golden heavenly flame slowly fell into the cauldron. Boom! The flame immediately burned fiercely in the cauldron. A scorching heat spread out and assaulted Xiaochen's face. The intense temperature forced Xiaochen to circulate his quintessence to resist. If he continued, he would definitely injure himself. Kacha kacha. Just as Xiaochen was about to place the purple thunder true fire in, cracks appeared in the Dragon Phoenix Cauldron and continuously expanded. With a bang, the entire Dragon Phoenix Cauldron shattered into pieces. The golden flame suddenly retracted, turning into a small ball of blazing flame, quietly floating in the air. Damn it! Why did you destroy my Dragon Phoenix Cauldron? A pained expression appeared on Xiaochen's face. The Dragon Phoenix Cauldron had been with him for a long time, carrying many memories of the Kunlun realm. It shattered just like that. It was truly unexpected and caught them off guard. It is my fault for not considering it thoroughly. This Dragon Phoenix Cauldron is a replica. How could it withstand the might of the heavenly flame? Xiaochen withdrew his flames and looked at the shattered Dragon Phoenix Cauldron. Then he sighed softly. He needed to change to a better cauldron. Martial uncle, someone is looking for you. Just at this moment, Ling Yu's voice rang out from outside. If there is nothing important, Ling Yu will not disturb me, Xiaochen thought to himself. Then his figure flashed as he walked out. Why are you looking for me? Ling Yu smiled and said, that monk Shen Yuan is here to ask for forgiveness. Even his master is here. The sect master said that this matter depends on your attitude. If you insist on being stubborn, then Zhen Yuan will be in a miserable state. He might even be punished to face the wall for 10 years. Where is he? He is just outside our courtyard. I left him hanging and did not bother with them. Ling Yu said, feeling aggrieved. Wasn't Zhen Yuan's master the monk Xianbei? No matter what, that Xianbei had saved Xiaochen's life before. That was a different matter. Xiaochen could not slight him. Make some preparations and properly entertain our honored guest. That venerable Xianbei saved my life before. Afraid that the venerable Xianbei would wait for too long, Xiao Chen's figure flashed and quickly arrived outside the courtyard. Benefactor Xiao, how have you been? When the venerable Xianbei saw Xiao Chen arrive, he placed one hand on his chest and bowed slightly. Zhen Yuan, who was at the side, showed a sincere expression as he bowed as well. Xiao Chen bowed slightly and said, Venerable is too polite. If it is because of your disciple, you can rest assured. I have no intention of pursuing this matter. The venerable Xianbei smiled kindly. He was not surprised by this and thanked Xiao Chen again. However, Zhen Yuan was startled. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen let go of such a great opportunity to punish him so easily. Xiao Chen waved his hand and said, Venerable, this way please. Ling Yu had already prepared tea in the great hall. Then the group sat down according to etiquette. Benefactor Xiao, I was rash in the fiendish demon battlefield. Although you forgave me on account of my master, please accept this small gift of thanks. Zhen Yuan stepped forward and handed a brocade box to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen casually received it, but did not open it. No matter how hard Zhen Yuan made things for Xiao Chen in the fiendish demon battlefield, the venerable Xianbei had saved him before. Accepting the venerable Xianbei's gift of thanks would be equivalent to writing off this matter and not mentioning it again in the future. The venerable Xianbei looked at Xiao Chen and asked, Benefactor Xiao, what are your plans after this? I can see that your complexion is full and your aura is stable. You are not like others who just advanced and have unstable cultivations. You will probably have to go on experiential training soon. Xiao Chen's cultivation was stable, and he had reached the peak in all aspects. Naturally, he could not continue closed-door cultivation. Regular sect disciples would usually accept sect missions at this moment and go on experiential training. Xiao Chen was not a member of the Purple Flame sect and could not do as he was told, so he could only think of another way. Xiao Chen nodded and said, I am still considering it, but I have not decided yet. There are still some things I need to do. The venerable Xianbei smiled faintly. After exchanging some conventional greetings, he sent Zhen Yuan away, showing an expression of having something important to discuss. Xiao Chen immediately understood and got Ling Yu to leave for now. Then he asked, Venerable, what do you have to say? The venerable Xianbei took a sip of tea before putting down the teacup. Then he said softly, Naturally, I am not worried about Zhen Yuan's matter. I believe that you will give me some face and not hold it against him. What I want to talk about is the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique. Xiao Chen's face sank, and his expression changed. However, he did not understand what the venerable Xianbei meant. Is he going to represent the Buddhist sect and take back this saber technique? That will not do. Even if the other party saved my life, I absolutely cannot hand this saber technique over to him. I also cannot let the other party cripple my breaking the mundane and resolving the mundane. The venerable Xianbei said, You have to hand over the saber technique manual and cripple the 2 moves that you practiced. This old monk will give you a corresponding compensation. I really guessed correctly. Xiao Chen did not know how to reply. The Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique was indeed a Buddhist sect martial technique. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary Buddhist sect martial technique. It was a consummate Buddhist sect martial technique, derived from a primogeniture grade cultivation technique. Large sects always treated their cultivation techniques as their exclusive property. That was the foundation of their sect. They were not allowed to casually teach it to outsiders. As for the consummate martial techniques that were leaked, they had to send experts of the sect to investigate and take them back. The other party was an esteemed monk of the Orthodox Buddhist sect. The Profound Light Temple definitely had a connection with the Hidden Spirit Temple. As they belonged to the same sect, their relationship was like that of a superior and a subordinate. Making such a request was morally justifiable and not overboard. The crucial thing was that Xiao Chen did not want to offend the Profound Light Temple now. After all, he had just temporarily resolved his grudge with the Black Lotus Church. Xiao Chen asked after some consideration, Venerable, can I not hand it over? The venerable Xianbei smiled and replied, Naturally you can. How? Convert to the Buddhist sect. I can personally help you tonsure and recommend you to join the hidden spirit temple of the central great realm. Xiao Chun felt speechless. The venerable Xianbei really could not forget about accepting me into the Buddhist sect. Is there no other way? The venerable Xianbei shook his head and said, at the very least, you have to hand over the saber technique. In the future, if you expose your saber techniques while roaming the central great realm, you will not be able to escape. The people from the 4 Buddhist monasteries will all find trouble with you. You don't have anyone you know to speak for you, so it will be even more difficult. When the time comes, the people from the Commandment Hall will take action and treat you as a traitor. The other 4 great temples can also exert influence on the 4 great dynasties. The Venerable Master Xianbei's attainments in the Buddhist Dharma were very high. However, he was also very clear about the ways of the world. The hint he was hinting at was very obvious. He was already helping Xiao Chun by handling this matter. If you hand me the saber manual and swear not to teach the saber technique to anyone else, the situation will be different. Not only will you form a connection with the hidden spirit temple, but you will also receive a lot of care in the future. I will also give you a corresponding reward. The Venerable Xianbei tried to move Xiao Chun with his emotions and reason, advising him to not be stubborn. Xiao Chun analyzed in his heart. That saber manual only had 3 moves of the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique, and he had already comprehended them. With or without the saber manual, Xiao Chun could practice the final move, entering hell. However, the value of the saber manual was clear. Back then, the Savage Blood Star Venerate did not hesitate to destroy an entire sect to obtain it. From this, Xiao Chun could prove the value of the saber technique. Never mind, I'll just hand it over. The Buddhist sects are very powerful. I really don't want to get involved in any trouble. Xiao Chun made up his mind. Then he took out the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's saber manual and handed it to the Venerable Master Xianbei. Breaking the mundane, resolving the mundane, entering hell. There are a total of 3 moves. I can swear that the saber manual in my hands only has these 3 moves. The Venerable Master Xianbei did not ask any further. He only looked at Xiao Chun and asked, Benefactor Xiao, how many moves do you know? Breaking the mundane, resolving the mundane. Both comprehended the true meaning. The moment Xiao Chun said that, the Venerable Master Xianbei immediately felt that it was a pity. Disappointment filled his face as he said, this Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique is a forbidden technique of my Buddhist sect. Not just anyone can practice it. Benefactor is an outsider, yet you managed to practice 2 moves. This is really... After all the miscellaneous steps were completed, Xiao Chun made a heart demon oath not to spread the saber manual. The Venerable Master Xianbei handed Xiao Chun a golden page with words that he had personally written. In the future, if the Buddhist sect's people used this saber to make things difficult for Xiao Chun, they would treat him with respect. With this as proof, the Buddhist sect's people would not make things difficult for Xiao Chun. Instead, they would treat him with respect. This is a gift from the Golden Letter. It is one of the highest appreciation gifts of the Buddhist sect. I hope that Benefactor Xiao will cherish it. The Venerable Master Xianbei handed the golden page to Xiao Chun. Then he took out a storage ring with his reward in it. These are some secular gifts. Please accept them. We will meet again in the future. After the Venerable Master Xianbei and Zhen Yuan left, Ling Yu rushed in and asked, Martial Uncle, why did that old monk look for you? Xiao Chun looked at the golden page in his hand and the storage ring. Then he said softly, nothing much. It's just that today, I realized that people who hide a dagger behind a smile are the scariest. They make it impossible for you to reject them. Chapter 17:11. What is this fellow going to give? At the foot of the Purple Flame sect, Zhen Yuan endured for a long time before asking, Master, did you obtain the saber manual? The Black Lotus Church Holy Sun had made a fool out of him. Watching as Xiao Chun defeated the Black Lotus Church Holy Sun, and watched as Xiao Chun left. If Xiao Chun were in Ancestor Dragon City, the dragon race upper echelon would have bestowed him with an esteemed dragon pattern cauldron. Inside the considerably large space, the storage ring nearly filled with medial-grade spirit jades. Xiao Chun extended out his spiritual sense and did a preliminary count. Naturally, the Soaring Dragon Marquis was not there. The Soaring Dragon Marquis' clan faction was focused on the central Great Realm's Yanwu dynasty. Lingyu calmed himself after a while. Then he sighed. In the past, I heard from the sect master that any rank 3 monastery on the Patala mountain has much more wealth than our sect. Now I finally see it for myself. I heard that many believers do not feel any heartache when donating that incense money, wishing that they could donate their entire family fortune. Empty? Lingyu asked in surprise. Who gave it to me? What does that mean? An ancient cauldron? This stumps me. In the ancient era, cauldrons reigned supreme, standing tall and fighting for the top. In the ancient era, cauldrons represented not only items but also luck, the nation's luck, even the dragon luck of a dynasty. An ordinary cauldron would have been fine. However, when Xiao Chun pointed out an ancient cauldron, Lingyu did not dare to speak carelessly. Instead, he entered deep thought. Lingyu smiled and did not refute. Originally, he had just said it casually. He had indeed gained a lot in this fiendish demon battlefield. Everyone in the Grave Sea knew that Xiao Chun was Yi Zifeng's junior brother. Anyone who wanted to make a move would have to think twice. Xiao Chun handed the storage ring to Lingyu, letting him see what was inside, and what compensation Xianbei had given him. Lingyu said with a smile, "Martial uncle, everyone who saw it has a share. Can you give us some? Money has been tight recently." Right now, it had nothing to do with the dragon race. That was the conferred land of the Yanwu dynasty's Soaring Dragon Marquis. It was called Soaring Dragon, and had more than 10,000 years of history. Regardless of whether they cultivated merit, incense power, or great aspirations, they were not easy to deal with. Zhen Yuan had never treated Xiao Chun as a true opponent. The environment that day was very complicated. If Zhen Yuan had to deal with Xiao Chun alone, he would not have to worry about anything. The contents of the storage ring revealed themselves. It was empty. There was nothing at all. You can't get along with others just because they have a kind and gentle smile on their faces. However, Lingyu was too embarrassed to accept it. After asking several times, he reluctantly accepted it, unable to hide the smile on his face. Xiao Chun did not want the sect to do anything about this matter. Actually, the sect could not do anything about it. Xianbei taking away the saber manual was perfectly justifiable, and there was nothing wrong with it. Xiao Chun to Xiao Dragon. Spirit of Chun of the clan to Dragon Sect Dragon to the Chun. Chun. It is just to Spirit Yu is of Long Chun. It is Chun to the Chun to. Spirit Chun of Chun Chi, just to Chun. Spirit Chun is spirit. The truth was more or less the same. Xiao Chun's expression could not help changing drastically. Xiao Chun recalled that his net worth was only 2 million medial-grade spirit jades at most. Lingyu continued, that Soaring Dragon Great Realm is the territory of the Soaring Dragon Marquis. Its status is instantly different. The many surrounding astral zones are all centered on that Soaring Dragon Great Realm. I know a place in Soaring Dragon City where you can definitely obtain the ancient cauldron that Martial Uncle wants. Lingyu's eyes lit up as he finally thought of a place. The Soaring Dragon Great Realm. When Xiao Chun heard that, he felt somewhat shocked. Could the Soaring Dragon Great Realm be related to the dragon race? At this point, Xianbei suddenly stopped and sighed. How unfortunate for that Xiao Chun. At first glance, I felt that he had a fate with Buddhism. The Buddhists place great emphasis on fate, so my first impression was definitely right. Indeed, an outsider actually managed to practice the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique that Orthodox Buddhist sect disciples find hard to practice. Xiao Chun looked at the empty box, and his lips curled up in a smile. Interesting. Is he trying to say that I am like heir to him? Not worth mentioning at all? Xiao Chun felt even more sullen. He could not bring out his strength at all. The Tianwu dynasty, the Yanwu dynasty, the Leiwu dynasty, and the Xiuwu dynasty were the 4 dynasties of the Central Great Realm. Each dynasty had hundreds of thousands of years of history. The dynasty's main clan was even older, dating back to the era when fiendish demons ran amok and sages appeared. All right, I'll listen to you, Xiao Chun said with disdain. Then he took the box and took a look. The dazzling light immediately dazzled him. Xiao Chun's speech was somewhat unclear, and he could not hear what he was saying. Xiaochen still had some of that high-grade life juice source. Together with his own medial-grade spirit jades, he had more than 10 million medial-grade spirit jades. Whoosh! The names of the dynasties all had the word martial in them, representing a certain atmosphere. It implied a prosperous martial luck. In the martial epoch, the dynasties stood firm and did not fall. The soaring dragon Great Realm was just their conferred land. I don't believe it. When they make their moves, they are inhumanely rich. Wow. Back then, they could sweep through the peak auction houses of the Purple Sun region, directly suppressing their opponents until they could not retaliate. Xiaochen shook his head. This was the charm of faith. He could not compare. However, if he wanted to cultivate, he needed an ancient cauldron. A light flashed in Zhen Yuan's eyes. However, he did not clearly hear what Xiaochen said at the end. He smiled and asked, Master, can this disciple take a look at the saber manual? The Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique is really curious. The Venerable Xianbei was someone who showed kindness and authority. Taking away the saber manual was the best way. I got it. Xiaochen rarely saw the Venerable Xianbei fight at full power. He was very mysterious and had the capital to be arrogant. In any case, no matter what, this incident taught Xiaochen a lesson. In the future, when he interacted with the people of the Buddhist sect, he could not lower his guard. What a bunch of vulgar things. Xiaochen let out a long sigh and smiled bitterly. The Venerable Xianbei is indeed extraordinary. However, Xiaochen felt somewhat upset that the saber manual was taken away. After all, that was the original version. By giving Xiaochen an empty box, Xiaochen wanted to tell Xiaochen not to get cocky. He would settle this score sooner or later. Xiaochen felt very tyrannical just thinking about it. To think that a complete Great Thousand Realms was just one of the conferred lands of a marquis. Zhen Yuan gave it to me, right? That fellow is really arrogant. Naturally, Xiaochen knew about ancient cauldrons. Coincidentally, he needed a good cauldron for cultivating vital qi. Lingyu sent his mental energy into the storage ring and exclaimed in an exaggerated manner. He recovered his wits only after a long time. Martial uncle, they are all spirit jades. They are all medial grade Lingyu. 3 days later, it was time for Xiaochen and Lingyu to depart. After hearing Lingyu's explanation, Xiaochen learned that this soaring dragon Great Realm did indeed have some connection to the dragon race. According to rumor, before the central Great Realm was established, that place used to be the territory of one of the 6 dragon race bloodlines. Martial uncle, what is this brocade box? Let me help you open it. Xiaochen smiled and said, Don't worry about that for now. Let's see what's inside. Lingyu muttered but did not say anything else. For a long time, Zhen Yuan had firmly suppressed Shangguan Lei and Wang Yueming. Most importantly, Zhen Yuan even comprehended a true intent. It would be a pity if such a talent was not of the Buddhist sect. Xianbei nodded without much concern. Merits offset demerits. You do not need to be punished for the mistakes you made because of the Black Lotus Church's demons. I will explain it to Senior Brother Abbot. In that case, he could use the cauldron for 2 purposes. As he refined the heavenly flame, he could also use the cauldron to cultivate vital qi. Even so, Xiaochen did not treat Lingyu as an outsider, directly giving him 1 million medial grade Lingyu. Xiaochen smiled and said, Cut it out. Aside from me, you gain the most in this fiendish demon battlefield. Who knows how much that peak-grade treasure weapon is worth? Furthermore, there is still a pile of natural treasures that have not been sold yet. Lingyu's expression changed slightly. Martial uncle, what's going on? Weren't they the ones who made the mistake first? Why did they take away your saber manual? I'll go and look for the sect master for you. Lingyu even added in his heart, if possible, I will not stand on ceremony with such worldly items. Xiaochen said indifferently, There's no need to care about him. Let me ask you something serious. Do you know where I can buy cauldrons? It would be best if they are ancient cauldrons. The older, the better. They have to be genuine. Xiaochen's expression recovered its calm. Then he waved his hand and said, There's no need. I already have no need for the saber manual. It is a Buddhist sect consummate technique in itself. Even if he does not come to me for it, someone else will come to me in the future. using even more forceful methods. Xianbei shook his head. Then he said decisively, "If it were any other consummate technique, it would not be a problem for me to let you take a look. However, the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique is not possible. Hence, there are too many disciples who fall into a state of obsession with the saber. After breaking the abstinence, how to exercise self-discipline and explain the words Mahamaya have always been difficult problems. If it were any other Buddhist sect expert, they would definitely attack without saying a word and not be so polite." When Xiaochen heard that, he immediately thought of something. What lousy scripture! It must be the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber techniques saber manual. Lingyu was about to rush over excitedly when Xiaochen stopped him. Wait a moment. However, Lingyu brought surprising news to Xiaochen. Zhen Yuan betrayed us. I heard that he killed a few Xian-ranked esteemed monks and stole a scripture before fleeing. The Profound Light Temple notified all the sects in the 3 blessed lands and issued the highest level wanted posters. Right now, there is no place for him in the entire Grave Sea. Xiaochen made some mental calculations. His net worth seemed to be more than 8 million medial-grade spirit jades. One day he would go to the Central Great Realm and compete with the strongest outstanding talents of the Great Thousand Realms. Before the blood-soaked Dragon Emperor fell asleep, he finally gave Xiaochen a dragon race cultivation technique and some dragon race secret techniques, hiding a dagger and a smile. Actually, that was not to the extent of it. 8 million medial-grade spirit jades. Xiaochen looked around and discovered a brocade box on the table. That was what Zhen Yuan had given him. Lingyu still felt dissatisfied. How could he bully others like this? How hateful. After a pause, Lingyu smiled and said, "Furthermore, we are now rich. 8 million medial-grade spirit jades. There are also the many natural treasures of the fiendish demon battlefield. We can sell them there, and sell them for a good price." It seemed like the defeat or some other reason led to the retreat of this dragon race bloodline. Aside from this, there was nothing else. All the items were clear and tranquil spirit jades giving off dense light. Xiaochen flicked his finger and sent out a strand of energy. Bang! The brocade box instantly bounced open. The cultivation technique for vital qi was called the Divine Dragon Golden Body Art. Just from its name, one could tell that it was extraordinary. Xiaochen did not trust Zhen Yuan. He had been so unlucky in the fiendish demon battlefield. He did not believe that Zhen Yuan did not hold any grudges against him. However, Xiaochen was not as lucky. He could only rely on himself. Xiaochen did not notice that Zhen Yuan's expression was scarily sullen at this moment. Regardless of whether he had something to do or not, he would gain something by comprehending it. Damn it! Does Master think that I am not even comparable to an outsider? Chapter 17:12. Then he suddenly made a move in the Profound Light Temple and stole the saber technique manual. Everything was connected meticulously. That was to say, one could still see Soaring Dragon City from 5,000 kilometers away. Lingyu did not know about the saber technique manual, so he asked, finding it strange. "Lingyu, where are you bringing me?" Furthermore, who knew what kind of danger they would encounter in the boundless starry heavens? Even a Cloud Sea cultivator would not dare to say that he could move around without fear. Xiaochen smiled and did not say anything more. Let's end this matter here. Let's go to the Soaring Dragon Great Realm. Now that Xiaochen could accompany his martial uncle, he got what he wanted. The indistinct figure looked like a huge coiled dragon amid the dust and sand, looking hazy and majestic. Yi Zifeng probably started plotting from the moment he left the fiendish demon battlefield. The two did not dare to waste time or use Yi Zifeng's name, so they could only obediently head to the Soaring Dragon Great Realm. Looking at Soaring Dragon City, which was not very far away, he barely managed to reach it at dusk. After entering, Lingyu marveled at the exquisite and luxurious carriage. This was especially so when he saw a small cabinet appear when Xiaochen gently touched it. What opportunity! Xiaochen felt astonished in his heart. Soaring Dragon City's accumulations were much deeper than he had expected. The streets immediately became much less populated, forming a strong contrast. The outline of a vast city appeared at the limits of the two's vision. Xiaochen nodded and stretched out his hand, and the cycle throne appeared from his clothes. Let's go. A special auction? How special is it? Ling Yu smiled and said, that's right. Martial uncle, the place I'm bringing you to is an auction that only those with a great desolate Ian bloodline can attend. No matter how many spirit jades one has, one is not qualified to enter. Martial uncle, let's set off as well. This was just the conferred land of a feudal lord in the Yanwu dynasty, and it already had such grandeur. Martial uncle, the place I'm bringing you to is a special auction. If you want to find an ancient cauldron, that auction should be the fastest way. Otherwise, you will have to go to the market and search slowly, wasting time and effort. The horses galloped, and the war chariot sped forward, kicking up dust clouds. Ling Yu explained to Xiaochen where they were going. After putting away the cycle war chariot, the two went to the majestic city walls and lined up to enter. After sailing for half a month, they finally arrived at the soaring dragon great world. Xiaochen smiled faintly, and the throne transformed into the shape of a horse. A huge spiritual pressure emanated from the city. It was unknown how far away it was. When Xiaochen and Ling Yu, who were in closed-door cultivation, were woken up, it felt like they had fallen asleep. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves in the soaring dragon great realm. It was an eye-opener for him. One could only imagine the magnificence of this city. Martial uncle, why do you think this Zhen Yuan would betray the temple for no reason? Ling Yu was filled with confusion and doubt. Xiaochen sighed softly. That's right. He has already reached the ceiling of the profound light temple. However, he still did not go to the central great realm. It was clear that he was not confident enough, feeling nervous and uneasy. Now that I've seen an opportunity, it's not strange for me to take the risk after waiting for more than 10 years. The two mutated flood dragons turned into black dragon horses, gently moving their hooves. They looked tall and mighty, exuding an extraordinary aura. No wonder Ling Yu said that this soaring dragon great realm was the center of the dozens of nearby astral clusters. It was indeed true. This was not Ling Yu's first time here. He explained softly, that soaring dragon city is built in the center of this great realm. Its aura swallows everything, absorbing the luck of the entire great realm. After accumulating for more than 10,000 years, it is not strange for it to have such boldness. Ling Yu chuckled and said, Martial uncle, don't be anxious. You will know when we get there. Xiaochen took out the 1,000-year flame that he normally could not bear to drink and filled the cups for Ling Yu and himself. Then he gently swirled the wine cups. When Xiaochen heard this, his interest was piqued. What strong might and pressure! Even a sovereign personage would have to think twice before attacking this soaring dragon city. Xiaochen leaped off the warship. Come on up then. There were 3 large docks in the vast grave sea. Yes, 10 years. To be precise, more than 10 years. More than 10 years ago, when Shangguan Lei and Wang Yueming made their debut, they were no match for him. Over the years he has gone further and further away, and Shangguan Lei and Shangguan Yin have rarely fought with him. No one knows how strong he really is. Everything was ruined. Xiaochen entered the car and called out to Ling Yu. His days were definitely not going to be easy. How could he cultivate in peace while hiding? Of course, it was not because the war chariot was moving too slowly, but because the journey was simply too long. Xiaochen estimated that it was at least 10,000 miles away. The Purple Flame sect had a starry sky teleportation array that led directly to the soaring dragon great realm. However, it consumed a lot of energy to operate it. Even if one wasn't an ordinary person, they wouldn't be qualified to use it. They all seemed to have the bloodline of the great desolate Eon's 10,000 races. Normally, it was rare to see the bloodline of the great desolate Eon's 10,000 races. However, this street was filled with them. It looked like Zhen Yuan had planned this long ago. He clearly knew that he could not snatch the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's saber manual. After several rounds of modifications, the cycle throne was now comparable to a peak-grade treasure tool when it came to traveling. No matter how one looked at it, Xiaochen's future was boundless. He would definitely shake up the Cloud Sea domain in the future. Zhen Yuan could even go to the distant central great realm and make a name for himself. Betraying the temple would be a grave sin. Hence, Zhen Yuan informed the venerable Xianbei to borrow the profound light temple's strength to retrieve the saber manual from him. What is this? Ling Yu asked in shock as he looked at the throne. The most important thing was that the cycle throne used to be a magic treasure. It referenced the immortal equipment of the immortal epoch, and was unique in the Great Thousand Realms. When Ling Yu heard that he was going to the Soaring Dragon Great Realm, he revealed an excited expression. That bustling place was much more interesting than the boring Blessed Lands. Unfortunately, he was not strong enough or wealthy enough, so he could not go there often. He was the most outstanding disciple of the profound light temple in the past 300 years. He was an outstanding talent with the greatest future in the three Blessed Lands. At his highest speed, he could fly as fast as a Cloud Sea sovereign personage in the starry heavens. The people of the same generation were at least minor primal core venerates. There were also many young cultivators like Hua Yinfeng and Shengguan Lei. Although the cycle throne could not compare to a huge starship in the starry heavens, it was very suitable for traveling short distances. Ling Yu led the way, bringing Xiaochen to a place. After making many turns, they arrived at a desolate street. Cold tea spread out in a cabinet, sealing Xiaochen's collection of wine cups in ice. After paying the entry tax, they entered the city without any obstructions. People continuously appeared at the port, rushing towards Soaring Dragon City. This auction house is not open to the public. However, it is the most prestigious auction house in Soaring Dragon City. Let's go and see if there are any ancient cauldrons up for auction. If there are, we can register directly. This huge warship was specially used for traveling in the starry heavens. It could carry more than 1,000 people at a time, and its flying speed was incredibly fast. It could conserve energy and was convenient to carry around. Riding on a huge starship was undoubtedly a safe and efficient method. Xiaochen had been to many auction houses, and they were all similar. He really wanted to know what was special about them. Of course, if one had strong connections and was wealthy enough to use the Starry Heavens transportation formation, it would be a different story. The bustling popularity of this place depended entirely on the peak cultivators of the nearby astral clusters. Xiaochen and Ling Yu both felt this faint spiritual pressure. All sorts of peak starships stopped at every port, traveling to various places of the Great Thousand Realms. Not only would they not have a foothold in the Cloud Sea domain, but they would also be wanted by the entire Buddhist sect when they went to the Central Great Realm. Xiaochen took a quick look. The cultivators who came here were all extraordinary. The older ones were all Cloud Sea cultivators. Star venerates were everywhere. At this moment, the chariot also started moving. 2 horses pulled the chariot, kicking up a cloud of dust on the street. If the Soaring Dragon Great Realm was the center of the dozens of nearby astral clusters, it would not be surprising that this city was bustling. Hence, Cloud Sea experts would choose to travel on a huge starship to conserve energy. Xiaochen wondered how imposing the Yinwu dynasty's true marquis's residence was. Xiaochen said calmly, "He has been the strongest person in the 3 Blessed Lands for more than 10 years already, right?" Xiaochen's face immediately sank. To his surprise, he discovered that every cultivator walking on the street seemed to be leaping about. It was like he had returned to the Great Desolate Aeon, that hot-blooded era when 10,000 races fought for supremacy. This person is really terrifying. In the future, when I run into him, I have to be more careful and not be careless. The people walking on the main road were all martial artists, and very few ordinary people could be seen. This place was an out-and-out martial city. Xiaochen made some calculations. 1 Grave Sea cluster had more than 100 purple sun regions. 1 purple sun cluster contained dozens of Great Thousand Realms. Chapter 17:13. Only those with a Great Desolate Aeon bloodline could participate in the auction? The style was really not ordinary high. Ling Yu continued. Even if you are a sovereign personage, without a Great Desolate Aeon bloodline, you still cannot enter the auction. Even if you are worth more than 100 million spirit jades and have mountains of spirit jades, you still cannot enter the auction without a Great Desolate Aeon bloodline. Oh right. If your bloodline is not pure enough and of poor quality, you will still be asked to leave. Xiaochen entered deep thought. What does this mean? bloodlines of the Great Desolate Eon's 10,000 races are rare in the first place. Furthermore, the bloodline's power is not diluted and pure enough. In that case, there will be even fewer bidders. Don't auctions need to be auctioned in order to earn more profits? Ling Yu's lips curled up. Who knows? I heard that the master behind the auction has something to do with the Soaring Dragon Marquis's young master here. Perhaps he does not lack spirit jades. However, speaking of which, cultivators with sufficiently pure Great Desolate Eon bloodlines are either true inheritors of sects or noble clans. They will not lack spirit jades. This piqued Xiaoqian's interest. He smiled and said, "Never mind that. Bring me over to take a look." After a while, the two stopped at the end of the street, in front of an ancient pavilion that was not very tall or magnificent. Why did Ling Yu emphasize that this was an ancient pavilion? It was because aside from the ancient aura that this pavilion giving off an exceptionally heavy feeling, there was nothing special about it. A signboard hung in front of the pavilion with the words Soaring Dragon Pavilion. The Soaring Dragon Pavilion in Soaring Dragon City. No one would believe that this pavilion had nothing to do with the master of the Soaring Dragon Great Realm. "Martial uncle, this is the place," Ling Yu said as he pointed to the signboard. Ling Yu pointed at the signboard. At the main entrance, many people were queuing up to enter. Those who wanted to enter had to undergo a strict inspection. They would be tested with blood, the might of the Great Desolate Eon's 10,000 races, and the light of the Great Desolate Divine Eyes. No way. The Astral Rock Race bloodline is only grade 2. You cannot enter the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. A black-clad old man in front of the pavilion said expressionlessly to a young cultivator, urging him to leave quickly. "Senior, how about you help me out? This time, I brought plenty of spirit jades to the Soaring Dragon Pavilion, and wish to auction off a good treasure weapon," the black-clad old man said without giving Xiaoqian any face. "There are many other auction houses in Soaring Dragon City that you can choose from. You don't have to enter the Soaring Dragon Pavilion." "Old thing, don't be so stubborn, okay? I'm also a core disciple of a 4th grade sect in the Songhai Islands. I came here because of your reputation. Can't I go in and take a look?" "Impudent." The black-robed old man let out a cold snort, and sent the so-called 4th grade sect disciple flying with a gentle palm strike. A star venerate level will of soul spread out from Xiaoqian's body, startling everyone. Xiaoqian felt startled in his heart. The old man guarding the door looked unremarkable, but he was actually a star venerate. The Star Rock race is one of the weakest races in the Great Desolate Eon. Furthermore, you only have a grade 2 bloodline. How dare you behave atrociously in front of the Soaring Dragon Pavilion? You are truly reckless. Scram. With a cold shout, the young man did not dare to stay any longer, and left with his tail between his legs. After this scene, Xiaoqian discovered that the long queue had become much shorter. It looked like many people who wanted to sneak in retreated and sneaked out. Soon it was Ling Yu's turn. He had entered once 5 years ago. Naturally, there were no problems, so he easily passed the inspection. Then, it was Xiaoqian's turn. Ling Yu waited at the entrance for Xiaoqian. In his opinion, after Xiaoqian activated his Great Desolate Eon bloodline, the horrifying dragon might made the blood in his body tremble. Passing the inspection would not be a problem. Ling Yu waited at the entrance for Xiaoqian. Among the Great Desolate Eon bloodlines, the dragon race ranked in the top 100. Although Xiaoqian's martial uncle could not possibly be a pure 6-colored divine dragon of the dragon race, he would not be far from it. Furthermore, the quality of his blood would definitely be very high. It would definitely be at least grade 5. That black-clad old man glanced at Xiaoqian and said indifferently, "Drip your blood." Xiaoqian glanced at a small spiritual pool in front. When his blood dripped into it, it would materialize all sorts of mysterious phenomena. If it were a dragon race cultivator, dripping his blood would definitely materialize the image of a dragon. It would either be a pure 6-colored divine dragon or a lower-ranked true dragon, like the sky dragon, the flood dragon, the thunder dragon, the coiling dragon, and so on. After that, the bloodline would be even thinner, and it would only be a false dragon bloodline. It would materialize some strange-looking dragons. In name, they were of the dragon race bloodline, but in reality, they were not presentable at all. Xiaoqian did as he was told, dripping his blood into the spiritual pool. Boom. Dragon might spread out, making everyone's eyes light up. People of the dragon race. The dragon race. That is an existence that ranks among the top 100 of the Great Desolate Aeon's 10,000 races. How incredible! I see another heaven-defying outstanding talent of the Great Desolate Aeon's 100 races. Who knew? That black-clad old man also felt slightly startled. However, when he looked at the illusion that appeared in the spiritual pool, he frowned. However, his brows furrowed. What the hell was that thing? It had green skin and a strange shape. It does not look like a six-colored divine dragon, or the various true dragons. So it is a false dragon. There is no need to test the rest. You may leave. You cannot enter the soaring dragon pavilion yet, the black-clad old man said indifferently. The dragon race was also divided into various ranks. The three great ancestor dragons were the strongest, but the ancestor dragon bloodline was already extinct. Now the six-colored divine dragons were the strongest, followed by the true dragons, and then the various strange false dragons with the thinnest bloodline. Of course, in the history of the dragon race, there had been some false dragon bloodline cultivators who turned the tables and became heaven dragons. However, most of the false dragon bloodline cultivators were known as mixed blood dragons within the dragon race. They would not have any status outside. The black-clad old man considered himself very knowledgeable, and knew the history of the Great Desolate Aeon's various races like the back of his hand. With one glance, he determined that Xiaochun was a false dragon. However, that was a blue dragon. It was once the strongest seven-colored divine dragons. However, for the sake of saving the dragon race, nearly all of them went extinct in a crucial battle, disappearing for tens of thousands of years. Now everyone knew that the six-colored divine dragons were unparalleled. Even Lingyu, a disciple of the Grave Sea, knew about them. However, no one had ever heard of the so-called blue dragon bloodline. Xiaochun felt speechless. However, this was fine. Even the black-clad old man could not recognize the blue dragon bloodline. In that case, Xiaochun could keep his identity a secret for a long time at the very least. Lingyu, who was at the door, felt shocked. This was completely unexpected. He exclaimed, "That's impossible. Senior, you must be mistaken." The black-clad old man said sullenly, "This old man has interacted with the people of the Great Desolate Aeon's 100 races before. How could I be mistaken?" Xiaochun waved his hand and smiled. "So what if it's a false dragon? However, shouldn't old sir give me a chance to see the rank of my bloodline first?" The black-clad old man entered deep thought. Then he nodded and said, "No matter how high the rank of a false dragon's bloodline is, what is the point? Let's go. There is no point in saying anything more. Don't blame this old man for doing things according to the rules." Whoosh. Right after the black-clad old man spoke, Xiaochun smiled faintly and opened his great desolate divine eyes. A resplendent golden light shot out from his eyes. Xiaochun's gaze, which contained the divine dragon's might, met the black-clad old man's gaze, catching him off guard and entering the depths of his sea of consciousness. The black-clad old man immediately felt his soul tremble, and he uncontrollably took 2 steps back. When the black-clad old man recovered his wits, he looked at Xiaochun, who had withdrawn his great desolate divine eyes, and revealed a horrified expression. He muttered to himself, "How can this be? How can the might of a false dragon be so frightening?" Xiaochun asked softly, "Senior, can I go in now?" The black-clad old man was still somewhat confused, feeling doubtful and confused. He shook his head and said, "Go in." As expected, Xiaochun smiled faintly. Ignoring the gazes of the others, he walked over with large strides. "Martial uncle, that was close. I thought that you would not be able to enter," Lingyu said as he heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt very doubtful in his heart. To think that martial uncle does not have a true dragon bloodline, but a false dragon bloodline. However, how did he clear the stage? It would be strange if the might of the strongest divine dragon bloodline did not clear the stage. Even if one was not very knowledgeable and could not recognize the blue dragon, the might of a divine dragon was real. Xiaochun smiled and did not say anything. The two entered the soaring dragon pavilion. The two immediately experienced a different scenery. It looked ordinary on the outside, but the decorations inside were extremely extravagant and resplendent. Two maidservants with voluptuous figures in sexy clothes walked over and attended to the two. "Marshal uncle, I'll just take a look first." "All right." With the maidservants attending to the two, Xiaochen did not need Ling Yu to lead the way. He also had things that interested him. Xiaochen asked the pretty maidservant, "Are there any ancient cauldrons for auction?" "Yes. I'll bring you to the ancient cauldron zone. It's on the 3rd floor." The pretty maidservant had a smile on her face. Her service was very thorough and polite. When the two arrived at the ancient cauldron zone, the pretty maidservant moved to the side, obediently not disturbing Xiaochen. Since this was the ancient cauldron zone, naturally all the cauldrons on display were ancient cauldrons. Furthermore, there were no restrictions on them. One could look around to one's heart's content and check everything thoroughly. It looked like the Soaring Dragon Pavilion's people were very confident in their security. They did not worry that someone would dare to cause trouble here. There were not many people in the ancient cauldron zone. Right now, only Xiaochen was there, making it seem especially deserted. The 2nd floor had medicinal pills, secret manuals, weapons and tools, as well as some ancient and legendary items. Those were the most popular places. Xiaochen looked around, and surprise appeared on his face. Then his gaze fixed on an ancient cauldron. That was a square cauldron with ancient patterns carved on its surface. It looked exquisite but did not lose its weight. Dragon pattern cauldron. Xiaochen felt somewhat surprised. Unexpectedly, he saw a genuine dragon pattern cauldron here. However, based on its aura, it did not seem ancient enough. It should be a dragon pattern cauldron produced by the dragon race in the past 1,000 years. Xiaochen did not know how it got leaked. Perhaps it was a reward from a dragon race cultivator. After the cultivator no longer needed it, he put it up for auction and spread it. After all, it could not be considered a peak dragon pattern cauldron. "Young master, are you interested in this dragon pattern cauldron? This is a genuine item of the dragon race, not an imitation made by an outsider. It is the work of an elder of the dragon race's upper echelon. Just this point alone makes it extraordinary," a pretty maidservant explained to Xiaochen in a gentle voice. Xiaochen took a look at the starting bid. 500,000 medial-grade spirit jades. The final bid was 1 million medial-grade spirit jades. The price was rather fair. This dragon pattern cauldron should be worth 800,000 medial-grade spirit jades. After all, it was a product of the dragon race. However, it was already very expensive. Regular Cloud Sea Star venerates could spend as much as 3 or 4 million medial-grade spirit jades. After all, they could not pawn off their treasures and weapons. Not everyone could be like the Profound Light Temple, which had many believers and could take out 8 million medial-grade spirit jades to exchange for the Mahamaya Abstinence Violation Saber Techniques Saber Manual. This brother, aside from its value, whether a cauldron is good or not depends on who used it. This cauldron is definitely worth the price. In the special zone for ancient cauldrons, it can rank in the top 3. Just as Xiaochen was about to speak, an azure-clad man with a smile walked over. As he walked, a sharpness was hidden. Xiaochen raised his eyebrows. This was a bladesman. Even though this person hid his sharpness, Xiaochen could still sense it. Furthermore, this person was an extraordinary bladesman. When the azure-clad man got closer, he smiled and said, "Just like the saber in brother's hand." Chapter 17:14. Who is this person? To think that this person's eyes are so sharp, immediately recognizing the origin of the saber in my hand. "I am Jianghe. How may I help you, brother?" The azure-robed man looked very clean. His smile was also very refreshing, making it hard for others to feel ill will. "Xiaochen, might I ask Brother Jiang why you feel that this cauldron is worth the price?" This was what Xiaochen was more concerned about. Indeed, he could not see anything special about the dragon pattern cauldron. The only bright spot was that it came from the dragon race. However, this cauldron was not made of peak materials and was not old. How could it be worth the price? Jiang He casually patted the cauldron and smiled. "Like I said, it does not matter if the cauldron is ordinary. What's important is that the person who used it is incredible. In that case, This cauldron is incredible as well. Jiang He glanced around and fixed his gaze on Xiao Chen's saber. Then he continued. It is like the saber in your hand. It contains only one Dao, and it is the rather common Thunder Dao. However, because of the word tyrant, and the legend of the generations of tyrants, it allowed an inferior grade Dao tool to become a superior grade Dao tool. Furthermore, it stands out from the rest, much stronger than a regular superior grade Dao tool. Anticipation appeared in Xiao Chen's heart. In that case, who used this cauldron? Jiang He smiled mysteriously. I can't tell you that. Even if I told you, you might not know. Do you know the most promising young bladesman of the dragon race? Xiao Chen shook his head. He had never been to the Central Great Realm. How could he know about the dragon race? That bladesman is known as Willow Leaf Saber in the dragon race because his saber technique is elegant and agile like the wind. When the saber light fell, it was like weeping willow leaves fluttering in the wind, like willow leaves filling the sky. Back then, when Willow Leaf Saber cultivated the dragon race's cultivation technique, he used this cauldron. Xiao Chen only half believed Jiang He's words, as many of the dragon race's cultivation techniques required the dragon pattern cauldron. Unlike the other races, only cultivators who cultivated vital qi would use cauldrons. However, there were not many cultivators who cultivated the vital qi Dao. Hence, this ancient cauldron zone was deserted. Jiang He spoke continuously, praising the dragon pattern cauldron. This made Xiao Chen feel a sense of intimacy. Xiao Chen was a member of the dragon clan. Although he had never been to the dragon clan, he definitely yearned for it. He happened to see the dragon pattern cauldron that came from the dragon race. Although the asking price was too high, he was actually tempted. Hearing others praise something that caught one's eye, it was inevitable that one would have a favorable impression of it. Of course, Xiao Chen would not let his thoughts and feelings show on his face. This was especially so for an unfamiliar bladesman who took the initiative to charge over. The two of them chatted casually, but they ignored the pretty maid beside them. The pretty maidservant frowned as she looked at Jiang He. She wanted to say something, but did not say anything in the end. Xiao Chen was too engrossed in his conversation with Jiang He to notice this small detail. Jiang He was quite familiar with cauldrons. As he spoke, he introduced most of the cauldrons in the ancient cauldron zone. Many of these insights broadened Xiao Chen's horizons, making him feel refreshed. For example, the difference between a square cauldron and an original cauldron, a three-legged cauldron or a four-legged cauldron. There was also the appearance and value of the cauldron, as well as how it was appraised. Just talking about it made one feel that the cauldron was indeed a great talent. Jiang He pointed at the cauldron designated for ancient cauldrons and said disdainfully, "A real ancient cauldron would only be considered noble if it has an inscription on it. However, the cauldrons in the ancient cauldron area, even the oldest one, do not have any inscriptions. This means that they are just ordinary cauldrons. Things from ancient times are good, but the bricks and tiles from ancient times are still rubbish. Cauldrons can't be simply divided by age." The maidservant interrupted. "No one would take this kind of cauldron out for auction. It's either a sect guarding cauldron, or an aristocratic family keeping it. For an inscription to survive until now, one can imagine how powerful the Tao contained in it is. Who would be foolish enough to auction it?" Clearly, Jiang He's words had angered the maidservant. After all, no one was happy about it. People said that the cauldrons they auctioned were all rubbish. Jiang He laughed out loud. "That's enough. You have your own judgment, brother. We had a good chat, and I hope we'll meet again. Goodbye." Jiang He performed a casual cupped fist salute and left with large strides. Xiao Chen looked around the ancient cauldron zone again. Then, his gaze landed on the dragon pattern cauldron. That's it. After all, it was a cauldron from the dragon race and had 1,000 years of history. It should be able to endure a rank 1 heavenly flame. As for using it to cultivate, it would be more compatible with the body-tempering cultivation technique that the blood-soaked dragon emperor gave him. Furthermore, his earlier conversation with Jiang He had deepened his understanding of cauldrons, which strengthened Xiao Chen's decision. 4 hours later, Xiao Chen met the late Ling Yu on the first floor. Clearly, Ling Yu had not had his fill yet. There are so many good things here. After looking around, The short sword in my hand is not worth mentioning at all. Ling Yu sighed, feeling somewhat dazzled. Dao tools were not rare in this place. There were 2 Dao tools being auctioned. However, they were not superior grade, not even medial grade, just inferior grade. Even so, they were still very popular, attracting many people to watch and play with them, praising them. Xiaochen smiled and asked, "What have you taken a fancy to?" "Too many. However, the one that truly suits me is a pair of gloves. I would like to auction off the short sword. After all, I have no use for it." Xiaochen waved his hand and said, "There's no need. That ink cloud sword of yours will become a Dao tool within 10 years. Even if you do not use it, you will be able to gain a lot from it. If you do not have enough spirit jades, I can just lend you some later." Ling Yu said somewhat embarrassedly, "I keep receiving benefits from martial uncle. I really feel bad about it." Xiaochen did not mind. "I am your martial uncle, after all. Since senior brother is gone, naturally, I will take care of you." After arriving at the auction house, Xiaochen took out 25 kilograms of the highest quality life juice source and handed it to the pretty maidservant. "The auction will be held 3 days from now. Your life juice source is considered a rank A auction item. The Soaring Dragon Pavilion will give you a VIP card for free. At that time, you can stay in a VIP room. Please keep it well." Xiaochen received the VIP card, not feeling surprised. The life juice source was a wondrous item of the highest quality, so it was very popular. The higher the price, the more the other party would charge. This was equivalent to giving money to the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. Naturally, the other party would not mistreat their customers. After staying in the city for a while and sightseeing, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Xiaochen and Ling Yu arrived at the Soaring Dragon Pavilion on time. When they entered, the decorations were already very different from 3 days ago. The auction items in the hall were all gone. The brightly lit hall only had a tall platform with no seats. It looked like the guests were going to stay in the 4 cubicles of the floor. The arrangement was rather unique. With a casual glance, one could clearly see the tall platform in the middle of the hall from any of the cubicles. As people came and went, a small auction for the outstanding talents of the great desolate Ian bloodlines was about to begin. "Brother Xiao." A familiar voice came from behind. It was Jiang He walking over. He had a smile on his face, looking as clean as before, giving off a good impression. "This little brother is?" Jiang He asked softly as he looked at Ling Yu. "My friend." Xiaochen did not want Ling Yu to feel awkward in front of outsiders. Normally, he would not purposely flaunt his status as Ling Yu's martial uncle. Jiang He nodded slightly. After the greetings, he asked, "Brother Xiao, do you know that something major happened in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion during the past 3 days?" Xiaochen's and Ling Yu's expressions changed slightly. They exchanged looks, both confused. "What major matter?" Jiang He said softly. "I wonder which senior expert got someone to sell 25 kilograms of life juice source here. Furthermore, it is of the highest quality without any impurities. To think that it even startled the people of the Cluster Lord's residence." The Cluster Lord's residence. After sightseeing in the city for 3 days, Xiaochen already learned that the master of this Soaring Dragon Great Realm was a granddaughter of the Yinwu dynasty's Soaring Dragon Marquis. Naturally, the residence here was the Cluster Lord's residence. Comparing oneself to others was truly frustrating. Xiaochen heard that this Cluster Lord Goyu was only 20-odd years old, about the same age as Ling Yu. However, she was already the master of a great realm. Furthermore, it was the extraordinary Soaring Dragon Great Realm, the center of several dozen nearby astral clusters. As for Ling Yu, he was just a rank 4 sect disciple, not even the strongest in the Gravesea cluster. In comparison, the difference between heaven and earth could not even be described. Xiaochen frowned and said, "No matter what, Cluster Lord Goyu will not lack life juice source, right? The life juice source is not the only natural treasure that can improve one's physique. There are still some." Jiang He said helplessly. "Naturally, the Cluster Lord does not lack these resources. However, there are many people in the Cluster Lord's residence, and there are many people in need of rewards. Not to mention the Cluster Lord. Everyone here is an outstanding talent with a great desolate Ian bloodline. Coincidentally, This life juice source has the greatest effect on us, and is also what we need the most. Xiaochen knew about this. The life juice source improved one's bloodline, which then led to the strengthening of one's physique. The outstanding talents with a great desolate Ian bloodline happened to be cultivators with special bloodlines. This was simply a natural treasure tailor-made for them. Jiang He shook his head and sighed. This time, we really have to pay a huge price. I hope that we can gain something. Brother Xiao, have you decided on that cauldron? This question was rather direct. However, Xiaochen did not mind answering. He answered honestly, the dragon pattern cauldron. Jiang He smiled and said, "You have good eyes. In my opinion, that dragon pattern cauldron is the only good cauldron worth collecting in the ancient cauldron zone." After a simple conversation, the two parted. After suppressing himself for a long time, Lingyu said excitedly, "Martial uncle, unexpectedly, that life juice source is in such high demand. It actually caused such a huge commotion. Earlier, I nearly could not hold back, and even startled the cluster lord's residence's people." Xiaochen said indifferently, "That is not surprising. After all, we have a great desolate Ian bloodline. The power of our bloodline is a treasure trove. Who would not treasure an opportunity to develop it? There were not many wondrous items that could develop a great desolate Ian bloodline. Coincidentally, the life juice source was one of them. Furthermore, it was the highest quality life juice source. When Xiaochen thought about his near-death experience that day, no matter what the result was, it would not be surprising. After all, he had used his life to exchange for it. After entering the VIP room, Xiaochen was surprised to discover that the maidservant in the room was the one who let him in 3 days ago. The pretty maidservant smiled, looking very cute. Xiaochen sat down. At this moment, an old man with a goatee walked over from the high platform in the hall. His weather-beaten face was full of vigor, his complexion flushed red, and he looked old. Lingyu said somewhat excitedly, "It is about to begin." Xiaochen found it strange. It was just the start of the auction. What was there to be excited about? All of a sudden, the flames in the brightly lit building went out one by one, and the entire building was plunged into darkness. Before anyone could react, the light returned in the next moment. However, it was not the light of the lamps. Instead, many pairs of great desolate divine eyes opened at this moment. The ancient soaring dragon pavilion immediately glowed with a divine light, looking resplendent. Chapter 17:15. The great desolate divine eyes illuminated the ancient pavilion. As far as the eye could see, the entire place was filled with beams of dazzling divine light. Under the illumination of the great desolate divine eyes, the ancient soaring cloud pavilion's noble status and identity immediately appeared. Anyone standing here would feel a surge of excitement. The outstanding talents with great desolate Ian bloodlines, which were rarely seen, were all gathered together today. All sorts of ancient great desolate Ian divine might reverberated intensely in the ancient pavilion, as the outstanding talents competed with each other. Lingyu, who was at the side, could no longer hold back. He activated his great desolate divine eyes, releasing motes of golden light. His gaze clashed with the gazes of the various places. This place was not a battlefield. However, the invisible competition was even more intense than a battlefield. Geniuses were all unruly. What more the outstanding talents with great desolate Ian bloodlines? Naturally, they were even more unwilling to fall behind. However, for some reason, Xiaochen remained indifferent, unable to feel the hot-bloodedness and impulse in Lingyu's heart. Deep disdain flowed in the depths of Xiaochen's bones. He did not have any desire to activate his blue dragon bloodline. There was no fighting spirit at all. Honored guest, are you not going to give it a try? The remaining 3 will receive prizes from the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. They will also get a significant discount from the auction. When the maidservant in the hall saw Xiaochen's indifferent appearance, shock flashed in her eyes. Actually, the prize was secondary. What they were fighting for was honor and face. Xiaochen wanted to give it a try. However, it was clear that he was not interested in the blue dragon bloodline. Naturally, he would not forcefully activate his great desolate divine eyes. Furthermore, Xiaochen was not the kind of person who liked to show off in front of others. There was no point in fighting for some vanity. Xiaochen looked at this maidservant. It was this maidservant whom he met twice. It could be considered fate. He smiled kindly and said, "Just call me Xiaochen." The maidservant smiled and said, "In that case, young Master Xiao, just call me Xiaoyu." Xiaoyu. It sounds pretty good. Xiaochen said indifferently as he picked up his wine cup, no longer chatting idly. Actually, there were people like Xiaochen who did not dare to be interested. For example, Jiang He giggled as he watched the scene before him from his private room. How lively! The Soaring Dragon Pavilion played this beautifully, stirring up the competitive spirit of the people of the same generation. Furthermore, it can test who is truly an outstanding talent worthy of nurturing. I wonder how many talents the Soaring Dragon Marquis has sent to the Soaring Dragon Marquis over the years? However, he could not help but reveal a disdainful expression as he looked at the various outstanding talents fighting for the top spot. Strange, why did I not see Brother Zhao's gaze? Don't tell me you were defeated so quickly? I still want to see what kind of bloodline it is. Jiang He was quite interested in Xiaochen, who wielded the tyrant blade. Of course, he was more interested in his wealth. Whether they could obtain that life juice source or not, they placed all their hopes on Brother Xiao. Brother Xiaochen, I have high hopes for you. Ling Yu closed his eyes and cried out in pain. Just now, when he looked into someone's eyes, he felt a chill run down his spine. Their auras clashed and their bloodlines contended for supremacy. The opponent was too powerful. In merely 10 breaths, he was defeated and could only close his eyes. Are you all right? Xiaochen asked. Ling Yu rested for a while before opening his eyes. He smiled and said, I'm fine. There will always be someone stronger. However, this is still an improvement. The last time I came, I did not defeat a single person. This is all thanks to Martial Uncle's life juice source. Otherwise, how could my bloodline power have improved so much? Ling Yu had shown off his sharpness in the Purple Flame sect. However, outside he could easily recognize his own strength. He was neither arrogant nor rash, easily satisfied. When the maidservant at the side heard this, she did not show any surprise in her eyes. It was like she already knew. However, this made sense. It was normal for the Soaring Dragon Pavilion's people to send Xiaochen to auction the life juice source. When only 3 pairs of eyes remained in the pavilion, the competition ended, and the auction began. Xiaochen was not too interested in the items being auctioned. He closed his eyes and rested, directly cultivating. Xiaoyu looked at Xiaochen, who had his eyes closed. Then, she looked at the saber that never left his hand, feeling this novelty. The auction proceeded in an orderly fashion. Ling Yu was very interested, occasionally chatting excitedly with Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu was very knowledgeable. She knew the origins of every auction item and spoke about them. This broadened Ling Yu's horizons. At the same time, he felt ashamed. Unexpectedly, his knowledge could not even compare to that of a maidservant of the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. Xiaoyu, I heard that the master behind your Soaring Dragon Pavilion is Cluster Lord Goyu. Is that true? Ling Yu did not hold back, casually asking about a topic that interested him. Xiaoyu nodded slightly. The Cluster Lord places great importance on the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. She will definitely attend every large-scale auction. When Ling Yu heard this, he immediately perked up. He looked around and said, that is to say, the Cluster Lord has already arrived at the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. Perhaps she is in one of the boxes. Could it be that our fight just now was also witnessed by Her Highness? Since this Soaring Dragon Pavilion is not established for profit, there has to be some other purpose. After thinking about it, the only possibility is that it is to rope in geniuses. Hence, what you said is probably correct. Xiaochen opened his eyes at some point in time. Ling Yu immediately felt somewhat disappointed. How unfortunate. Otherwise, I would have used my full power earlier. Xiaochen said out of curiosity. You are the disciple with the most potential in the Purple Flame sect. Yet you are interested in this as well. Ling Yu said with a fervent gaze. Which outstanding talent of the nearby astral clusters does not want to make a trip to the Central Great Realm? If they can enter the Soaring Dragon Marquis' residence, it would be like connecting the heavens and earth. directly entering the dynasty's core. Xiaochen entered deep thought. Ling Yu's words allowed him to see a new path, a path to enter the central great realm in advance. However, Xiaochen did not think too much about it in the blink of an eye. His original intentions had not changed, never changing. He was someone determined to become the Dragon Emperor. How could he join a dynasty's marquis residence? If he did not have so many ambitions, the dynasty's marquis residence would indeed be a good springboard. After a few more years, when he was truly confident, he would personally enter the Great Thousand Realms. He would rely on himself, not anyone else. Is young Master Xiao regretting it? If you are willing, this servant can introduce young master to the Soaring Cloud Pavilion's upper echelon. When the maidservant, Xiao Yu, saw Xiaochen's silence, she misunderstood. Xiaochen smiled and said, "It's fine. Many thanks for Miss Xiao Yu's kind intentions." The next auction item is the Dragon Pattern Cauldron. It has more than 1,000 years of history, and is a product of the dragon race. I believe I do not need to explain its value. 500,000 medial-grade spirit jades. Each increment must be no less than 50,000 medial-grade spirit jades. No wonder Xiaochen opened his eyes. It turned out that it was time for the Dragon Pattern Cauldron's auction. 600,000. 650,000. 700,000. 800,000. 1 million. Before Xiaochen could say anything, the price instantly soared to 1 million medial-grade spirit jades. This far surpassed Xiaochen's expectations, flabbergasting him. Xiaochen frowned heavily and muttered, "Strange. Why is the bidding for an ordinary dragon pattern cauldron so intense?" It was a fact that the dragon pattern cauldron was worth a lot. However, that dragon pattern cauldron was not of high quality. It was one of the more ordinary ones. To dragon race cultivators, it was suitable for cultivation techniques and martial techniques. To others, its value was not that high. At most, it would be 1 million medial-grade spirit jades. However, for some reason, it instantly soared to 1 million. Furthermore, Xiaochen noticed that the people who called out bids were the same group of people. They all appeared determined to obtain it. Xiaochen entered deep thought. There was only one explanation. Without exception, all the people who came to buy the cauldron had their eyes on this cauldron. Suddenly Xiao Yu said, "Young Master Xiao, actually I was about to say this 3 days ago." Practically every time someone came to look at the cauldron, he would show an enthusiastic expression. This would lead the buyer's judgment to that dragon pattern cauldron. Xiaochen's eyes lit up as he startled awake. He said, "He was the one who put that cauldron up for auction." "Yes, I checked. He was indeed the one who put it up for auction." When Xiaochen heard that, he could not help but laugh in frustration. This fellow is really going all out. After thinking about it, Xiaochen remembered that the other party had indeed, intentionally or unintentionally, strengthened his resolve to buy the dragon pattern cauldron. However, even without Jiang He's words, Xiaochen still had to buy this cauldron. 2 million. Xiaochen could not be bothered to continue bidding, so he directly raised the bid to 2 million. The buyout price for that dragon pattern cauldron was 2 million. Back then, the buyer did not buy it at the buyout price. This meant that 2 million exceeded their expectations. Hence, when the bid for 2 million was raised, no one else raised the bid. Thus, Xiaochen obtained the dragon pattern cauldron as he wished. The dragon pattern cauldron was worth 1 million medial-grade spirit jades. Xiaochen felt a pang in his heart after spending twice the price. In another private room, Jiang He rejoiced. He could tell that the final bidder was Xiaochen's voice. "With 2 million medial-grade spirit jades in hand, I am now confident in auctioning off that life juice source. Brother Xiaochen, you did not make me look favorably upon you in vain. It is worth it." Jiang He giggled and muttered to himself. However, speaking of which, the dragon pattern cauldron used by the willow leaf saber is not a loss for 2 million spirit jades. It took me a lot of effort to steal it out. The auction continued. Soon it was time for the life juice source. The fiery scene and the soaring prices made people feel like they were suffocating. 3,500,000. Just as the price soared, a cold and serene voice rang out on the top floor. Everyone's heart immediately sank. They knew that the cluster lord's residence's people had made a move. Ling Yu could not help but look in the direction of the voice. However, he discovered that the private room was tightly sealed, preventing others from checking with their mental energy. Ling Yu was disappointed in his desire to see the cluster lord's true appearance. Ling Yu was not the only one disappointed. Most of the people thought the same. 4 million. Just when the crowd thought that no one would dare to compete with the people from the princess's mansion, a lazy voice sounded. It turned out that Jiang He had made his move. Not caring about anything else, he immediately raised the price to 4 million. The voice from the princess's mansion did not sound again. Before many incredulous gazes, Jiang He successfully won the bid, using the sky-high price of 4 million medial-grade spirit jades to obtain 25 kilograms of the highest quality life juice source. The normal market price of 25 kilograms of life juice source was about 1.5 million medial-grade spirit jades. However, with a bunch of envious bloodline elites bidding for it, the countess's house stepping in, and Jiang He the troublemaker, it was a pleasant surprise for Xiaochen to make a fortune. Next, there was an ordinary low-grade Dao tool up for auction. This pushed the atmosphere of the entire auction to the peak, and then the auction came to a successful end. Xiaochen observed the inferior grade Dao tool, and was not interested in it. It was tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. It was of little value. However, it was a Dao tool after all. Using it as the finale item showed the Soaring Dragon Pavilion's sincerity. Similarly, it attracted the most bidders. Chapter 17-16. The auction ended. By relying on the life juice source, not only did Xiaochen not spend a single cent, but after deducting his expenses, he even obtained 2 million medial-grade spirit jades. Young Master Xiao, do you really not need me to introduce you? The Soaring Dragon Pavilion is very curious about young Master Xiao obtaining the life juice source. The pretty maidservant, Xiao Yu, blinked her eyes and looked at Xiaochen delicately. The originally hot and seductive maid suddenly became like a lotus flower in clear water, making one feel tender and lovable. Xiaochen said indifferently, I exchanged my life for it. There's nothing to be curious about. We'll meet again if fate allows it. Xiaochen was not very interested in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion's invitation, so he could only reject the beauty's kind intentions. Xiao Yu was stunned for a moment. She did not expect Xiaochen to reject her so decisively. She smiled and said, Have a safe journey. I hope we will meet again in the future. Goodbye. After exchanging greetings, Xiaochen put away the dragon pattern cauldron and left. Outside the gates, he coincidentally ran into Jiang He. He had a cocky smile on his face as he toyed with the jade bottle containing the life juice source in his hand, attracting the attention of many people. It was hard not to notice such a high-profile and casual action. Ignoring the dissatisfied gazes, Jiang He strode toward Xiaochen and smiled. God of fortune. No, brother Xiao, congratulations on obtaining the cauldron. Xiaochen said with a smile, You're too polite. You're not bad yourself. You gained quite a lot. You even dare to oppose the people from the princess's mansion. How courageous of you. When Ling Yu saw that Jiang He was a conman, Jiang He did not even bat an eyelid. In terms of acting skills, martial uncle was still better. This fellow thought that he had fooled his martial uncle, and was very pleased with himself. However, Xiaochen did not know that the life juice source in his hand was put up for auction by his martial uncle. Jiang He laughed out loud. It's fine, it's fine. The people of the cluster lord's residence are nothing. How about it? Do you need life juice source? I'll share some with you. I can't give you more than half a tael. That's not a problem. Ling Yu nearly could not hold back his laughter. After all, his martial uncle had given him 50 kilograms of life juice source. How could he have the cheek to give away half a tael? That was what Jiang He was thinking. No matter what, he had to screw over Xiaochen. He felt somewhat apologetic. Without the other party's spirit jades, he would not have been able to bid for it. Half a tael was a sign of gratitude. What? Don't be so polite with me. Otherwise, it means that you don't treat me as a friend. Seeing that Xiaochen was silent, Jiang He deliberately put on a serious face and emphasized his tone. Xiaochen showed a somewhat embarrassed expression. You gave me 2 million spirit jades. Yet you want me to accept your life juice source? How can I accept that? Don't. Treat us to a drink. After all, you spent a lot on the life juice source, Xiaochen said after some consideration. Jiang He laughed out loud. Haha, what a brother. Come, let's go to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. My treat. Xiaochen muttered to himself. The name sounded like a romantic place. Smiling Daughter Pavilion. It wasn't a brothel, but compared to ordinary restaurants, there were more elegant performers playing musical instruments. True to its name, the Smile of 1,000 gold. One would have to pay an extremely high price to obtain the company of these performers. As for the Smile of 1,000 gold, it was one of the top 3 establishments in the Yanwu dynasty's capital. It had sufficient charm and fame to attract the outstanding talents to spend large sums of money here. The famous performers could even incite the scions to fight over them, all for the sake of a beautiful woman's smile, and showing off before others. In Soaring Dragon City, this kind of thing happened frequently. However, Xiaochen rarely went to such places, so he did not know much about them. The Smile of 1,000 gold had a total of 8 floors. The higher one went, the more one needed to spend. For the sake of showing off one's wealth and status, the outstanding talents who came here would do their best to go to a higher floor. Clearly, this was not Jiang He's first time here. He smiled at the maidservant and said, to the 6th floor. The 6th floor was the highest floor that ordinary people could go to. Any higher and required special status and invitations. Our Smile of 1,000 gold is the best restaurant in the nearby dozens of astral clusters. As long as one has enough spirit jades, beautiful performers can personally serve you. That maidservant did not hide anything from Xiaochen and Lingyu. She smiled charmingly, causing Lingyu to blush slightly. Xiaochen's expression did not change as he entered the elegant room and sat down. An exquisite landscape painting hung on the wall behind him. The painting was exquisite. Xiaochen did not know which mountain it was, but it gave the illusion that he was there. When sitting at the back, it felt like a wind blew and clouds drifted around him. It was very wondrous. The decorations were elegant and refined, giving off a unique charm. This pavilion is indeed extraordinary, Xiaochen thought. It is indeed extraordinary to be able to attract outstanding talents to spend so much money here. Jiang He asked that maidservant in a familiar manner. Are there any headliners today? Reporting to young master, today is the Luo River Waterflower Day. The 10 headliners will take turns appearing. The maidservant smiled faintly, answering as she served wine. Jiang He's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, interesting. Brothers, you came at the right time. I should have guessed it. The Soaring Dragon Pavilion just held a large-scale auction, and the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's Luo River Waterflower Day will be brought forward. After that, Jiang He waved his hand and said, you can withdraw first. Remember to arrange for 4 performers with exquisite zither skills and 3 pretty ladies to drink with us. The maidservant nodded and withdrew. Lingyu asked in confusion, what is the Luo River Waterflower Day? Jiang He explained with a smile. Normally, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion will only occasionally have a headliner appear. After they perform, they will have people bid for them. The Luo River Waterflower Day occurs only once every 3 months. The 10 headliners take turns performing, each displaying their skills. It is very rare to see them. Lingyu's lips curled up as he said, they are just some performers. Why would they care so much about them? You don't understand. Jiang He clinked cups with Xiaochen. Then he said, the 10 headliners are all extremely beautiful and have their own charm. Furthermore, their cultivations are all higher than yours. In terms of talent and air, there is no need to mention them. They have been practicing this since they were young. In the Yanwu dynasty's capital, the top 10 performers have countless experts working for them with just a word. Lingyu was startled when he heard this, feeling dubious. Xiaochen entered deep thought. Aside from the 3,000 Great Tao, there were also 800 side paths. Indeed, there were people who could comprehend the Tao from music. However, without experiencing killing and walking the line between life and death, no matter how high one's cultivation was, one would just be a pretty face. However, Xiaochen had not seen any experts of the Great Thousand Realms that cultivated the music Tao. He wanted to see how strong the so-called headliners of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion were. Jiang, he said. Aside from this Smiling Daughter Pavilion is definitely the place where news spreads the fastest in the Soaring Dragon Great Realm. Many secrets and recent major events can be heard here. With a thought, Xiaochen discovered that there were no restrictions in the neighboring rooms. As long as one paid attention, one could clearly hear the news being discussed. Recently, more and more bladesmen came to the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. I believe that after the Soaring Dragon Pavilion's auction ends, there will be more cultivators heading to the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. The Dragon Flame Ancient Land is the land of fortuitous encounters in the Soaring Dragon Great Realm that attracts the most geniuses and outstanding talents. Not only can one find the dragon race's ancient treasures, but one can also exchange moves with people of the same generation for experiential training. Where else can one find such a place? Actually, not really. The various astral clusters have similar experiential training lands. However, they are not like the Soaring Dragon Great Realm, which can attract the outstanding talents of the dozens of nearby astral clusters. Xiaochen casually listened and heard something that interested him. Dragon race's ancient treasures, and the gathering of experts of the same generation. If there was an opportunity, he would have to ask around about the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. This was the time when he needed experiential training. Soon, four performers entered the private room. After they bowed slightly, zither music slowly rang out. There were also 3 pretty girls sitting obediently at the side, pouring wine and chatting with them. After 3 rounds of wine, the sound of clear flowing water rang out on the 8th floor of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Xiaochen looked up and saw mist spreading above. Amid the hazy mist, he saw a flower boat drifting over, approaching from afar. The ethereal zither music, the clear water, and the hazy mist stirred one's imagination. All of a sudden, the clamor from all the floors quieted down. Everyone knew that the Real show was about to start. All they needed to do was wait. As the flower boat approached, it was like a painting slowly unfurling. When the mist scattered, a young maidservant walked out of the flower boat. She looked exquisite and obedient, dressed in white. Amidst the mist, she was as pure as a fairy, making one feel tender and lovable. The young maidservant carried a flower basket and took out a green medallion. As she stood on the flower boat, she said in a condescending manner, "The first headliner to appear tonight is Miss Ling Long, a green medallion. Miss Ling Long excels at dancing the pipa. She was once the music teacher of the Yanwu dynasty's little princess. She has been in the palace for 3 years and is well read. She is very knowledgeable and has studied Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism." This was Ling Yu's first time seeing such a lineup. This broadened his horizons and shocked him. He whispered to Jiang He, "Big brother Jiang, what do red and green medallions mean?" Jiang He burst into laughter and said, "You are still young. Don't ask such questions. Don't say anything. Miss Ling Long will be coming out soon." Chapter 17:17. The maidservant girl left the Cloudwater Wonderland on the 8th floor, and an elegant and pretty girl walked out of the flower boat. A commotion immediately broke out in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion as the delinquents called out Ling Long's name. Xiaochen looked at that girl. She was indeed as pretty as a flower, devastatingly beautiful. Her appearance and aura were excellent. Of course, what shocked Xiaochen even more was that this girl was actually a major primal core venerate. Just based on surface strength, this girl was actually stronger than Xiaochen's. What Jiang He said was true. Ling Yu showed an embarrassed expression, still conflicted over the earlier question. He raised his head to look at that girl. With just one glance, he was stunned as he held up his wine cup. Ling Long hugged the pipa and nodded gently. Then her delicate, lily-white hands started to gently play the pipa. The beautiful pipa music rang out, sounding melodious and pleasing to the ears. The music seemed to ring out right beside them, telling a beautiful story. The moment the pipa music rang out, the noisy place fell silent. Everyone became immersed in this wonderful state. The green mountains and flowing water moved along with the stream. When one closed one's eyes, the beautiful scene that seemed like the wind was right before one's eyes, within reach. Slowly, The many decorations in the elegant room and the landscape paintings on the walls seemed to come to life. The beautiful girl carved on the screen seemed to come to life. Mixed with the pipa music coming from the boat above the clouds and water, it was extremely beautiful, like a poem or a painting. The large strings were like a torrential rain, and the small strings were like whispers. The music was noisy and disorderly, like pearls of various sizes falling on a jade plate. The oriole's words were smooth, like the flowing ice of the serene spring. There was no need to worry or hate. At this moment, silence spoke louder than words. At some point in time, the music had already stopped. However, everyone remained immersed in it, not opening their eyes. Wonderful. Xiaochen could not help praising as he slowly opened his eyes. However, he discovered that Jiang He had already opened his eyes at the same time. Brother Xiao, did you hear anything from it? Xiaochen took a sip of wine and replied, No. I only felt that the string music was wonderful and ever-changing. It blended with the decorations in the elegant room, making one involuntarily immersed in it. However, when her song broke off at the end, it seemed like she wanted to express more. There were still many emotions that she wanted to express, but for some reason, she suddenly stopped. Jiang He smiled and said, All right, then I'll fulfill Brother Zhao's doubts. I'll have headliner Ling Long accompany you tonight. He casually waved his hand and a streak of crystal light flew toward the window. Countless medial-grade spirit jades flew out of his storage ring, forming a dazzling belt of light. Hua hua hua. The moment the spirit jade flew out, it automatically flew toward the flower basket in the young maid's hand. 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades for Miss Ling Long's token. Jiang He was very generous, spending 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades with a wave of his hand like flowing water. However, the flower basket in the hands of the young maidservant didn't reveal anything as she directly stored the spiritual jades in it. How extravagant! 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades in one go. Which rich guest is this? Everyone was startled awake from the music. Seeing such a large sum of money, they were all shocked. 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades was not a small sum. Ordinary people would not dare to spend so casually. It was not that one could not take out 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades. Rather, one would spend 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades just to win the favor of a beauty. It's him. He is the Jiang He who won the life juice source in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. No wonder he is so generous. He is someone who can afford 4 million medial-grade spirit jades. Naturally, 100,000 medial-grade spirit jades is nothing. I heard that he even offended the people of the Cluster Lord's residence. He showed himself in the limelight and stirred up many people's dissatisfaction. Jiang He did not mind at all. All sorts of discussions were going on, and he kept smiling as if nothing could trouble him. 200,000 medial-grade spirit jades. Just as Jiang He thought that he was in the bag, a clear voice rang out, and 200,000 medial-grade spirit jades flew into the flower basket. Jiang He's face sank. That voice seemed to be directed at him, directly doubling the price. Clearly, there was a deeper meaning behind it. 300,000 medial-grade spirit jades. Jiang He had already made his offer to Xiaochen. He could not possibly not bid. 400,000 medial-grade spirit jades. 500,000 medial-grade spirit jades. 1 million medial-grade spirit jades. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Light flickered in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Crystalline ribbons of light made of spirit jades moved about, making the pavilion resplendent and dazzling. The unassuming flower basket flickered with light that nearly covered the entire place, dazzling everyone's eyes. When the 1 million medial-grade spirit jades entered the flower basket, countless beautiful flowers flew out. In that instant, flowers filled the air in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. They were very beautiful, looking indescribably beautiful. Jiang He showed a sullen expression, but he could not continue bidding. The other party raised the price to 1 million medial-grade spirit jades, making it impossible for him to continue. Everyone in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion knew that someone was purposely making things difficult for him, wanting to trample on him in front of everyone. Flowers fill the hall. This is my first time seeing such a scene. That person must have tossed in at least 4 or 5 million medial-grade spirit jades. This is rare. This is my first time seeing people compete so fiercely. This is too crazy. Is there such a need? That is the heavenly profound gates Fengchun, the flowing cloud sects Chunyun, and the thunderflame castles Yenyuan. I remember them. Earlier, in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion's Divine Eye contest, the three of them were at the very end. No wonder they are making things difficult for Jiang He. It turns out that they formed a grudge in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. Ah, interesting. This time, Jiang He's face is slapped in a miserable manner. Excited cheers immediately rang out in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Spectators were always like this, never complaining about things blowing out of proportion. Jiang He shrugged and smiled helplessly. It can't be helped. In the end, I can't overturn Miss Ling Long's reputation. In the earlier competition, the bids totaled up to 2 million medial-grade spirit jades. Right now, Xiaochen could no longer take out any more spirit jades. The other party was at a disadvantage against him alone. Ling Yu felt somewhat flabbergasted. This competition allowed him to see for himself. In just a few blinks of an eye, Xiaochen, pauper. If you can't afford to play, then don't play. You are already giving face to the cluster lord in the Soaring Cloud Pavilion, not making things difficult for you. To think that you still dare to come to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion to show your might. Just as Xiaochen was about to speak, a sarcastic voice came from the private room that had been making things difficult for Jiang He. In the private room across, Fengchun, Chunyun, and Yen Yuan showed cold smiles and mockery as they sipped their wine in an indifferent manner. The heavenly profound gates Fengchun said indifferently, "Let's see if he can still smile in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion." Yen Yuan put down his wine cup heavily and said, "This fellow really does not know the rules. I wonder where this foreigner came from to be so arrogant. He is truly reckless. Tonight, I'll show him the rules." These three were the outstanding talents of the many nearby astral clusters. In the Divine Eye contest in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion, they had been in the limelight. Who could have imagined that this Jiang He, who came out of nowhere, would win the life juice source in such a high-profile manner? Furthermore, he showed his might in the Soaring Cloud Pavilion without any fear. This upset the three long ago. After they investigated Jiang He's background, they followed him to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. They did this for no other reason than to suppress Jiang He's sharpness and force him to spit out the life juice source. When Jiang He heard this, he immediately revealed a murderous intent on his face. A playful smile flashed in his eyes. Xiaochen pressed down on Jiang He's hand and said, "Play with them." This Smiling Daughter Pavilion was not a place where he could take the initiative to attack. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Jiang He waved his hand, and 2 million medial-grade spirit jades flew out of his palm. They turned into a gorgeous beam of light and entered the flower basket. In the private room, Fengchun, Chunyun, and Chunyun were all stupefied. The 2 million medial-grade spirit jades of light persisted for a long time before the flower basket absorbed them all. When everyone saw this, they all exclaimed in shock. Their mouths gaped in disbelief. The flower basket in the maidservant girl's hand immediately shot out a dazzling 7-colored light, illuminating the 8th floor. Between the clouds and water, it looked like a paradise on earth. Whoosh! A fairy-like beauty flew out of the 7-colored light, performing a sword dance in the air. Her beauty was boundless, attracting the attention of the girl performing the sword dance in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Her extraordinary appearance gave off a hazy air. This attracted everyone to stand up and go to the window. Then they opened their eyes wide and did their best to look. They only wanted to see that fairy's appearance. Everyone was intoxicated by this girl's beauty, unable to extricate themselves. In the end, a sword soared through the air, dominating the world. Snow and ice gathered into pure white flowers that drifted down, looking boundlessly beautiful. The fairy performed the sword dance, and ice flowers bloomed. This was on a much higher level than the earlier mysterious phenomenon of flowers blooming in the hall. Everyone was intoxicated, unable to say a word. This was the Hall of Flowers intoxicating 3,000 guests. One sword frost 14 provinces. Chapter 17-18. Flowers fill the hall, intoxicating 3,000 guests. One sword cold 14 provinces. Above the clouds, the flower basket in the maidservant girl's hand gave off a mysterious phenomenon. This poem was the best way to describe it. Everyone in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion became intoxicated by the ice flowers filling the sky, feeling like they melted into their hearts. Many people stood at the windows and craned their necks to look at the flower boat. However, after that fairy girl swept her sword across the sky and soared into the sky, she returned to the flower basket and did not appear again. This made everyone feel empty in their hearts, like they had lost something. They felt heartache and brooded over it. The girl known as Ling Long hugged her Peepa in the flower boat. She showed a calm expression, only showing some surprise. He truly did not expect that in this soaring dragon city, there would actually be a phenomenon that would only occasionally appear in the imperial capital of the empire. That flower basket had a great origin. It was forged with great care. In terms of complexity, it was even more complex than a peak Dao tool. The Smiling Daughter Pavilion could amass wealth on a large scale, relying on the talents and outstanding talents to compete with each other. To a large extent, it relied on this flower basket. The flower basket also had a very nice name. It was called the Fairy Basket. It was said that not only could it emit all sorts of strange phenomena, but it was also able to create many strange phenomena. It was said that not only could it give off many mysterious phenomena, but the person in charge of every branch of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion could also control the flower basket to defend against enemies. The Fairy Basket in the dynasty's headquarters was a peak existence that surpassed Dao tools. The various branches had peak Dao tools. 2 million medial grade spirit jades. No one else's bidding. Congratulations to this young master for obtaining headliner Ling Long's card. The maidservant girl smiled as the green card in her hand turned into a beam of light, flying towards the private room where Xiaochen was. Whoosh! Xiaochen stretched out his hand and caught the green card. The words Ling Long were written on the front. It was a piece of superior grade jasper. Jianghe laughed loudly. I thought that trash like you could be very powerful. You are only SOSO. It turns out that you only know how to argue. In the end, you are not even comparable to a pauper. Feng Chun, Chen Yun and Yen Yuan showed sullen expressions, showing unsightly expressions. After being humiliated in such a manner before the many honored guests of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Xiaochen found it hard to swallow. They had already trampled Jianghe underfoot, but who could have imagined that Xiaochen would suddenly show up and slap them back? They didn't even have the strength to fight back. I can't stand it anymore. The hot-tempered Thunderflame Castle's Flame Yuan was about to erupt in anger. Don't be rash. Let's wait for them to leave first. Feng Chen said indifferently. A trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Originally, he did not want to be a match for Xiaochen. After all, he was a member of a rank 4 sect, unlike Jiang He, who had no background. However, Feng Chen could not care so much right now. He took a sip of wine and said, "Let's go. There is no need to stay here and embarrass ourselves." After speaking, Feng Chen stood up and led Chen Yun and Yen Yuan out of the private room. They walked along the corridor and headed downstairs. As soon as the three of them appeared, they were immediately noticed by countless people and their gloomy faces. Many people knew that today's matter could not be resolved peacefully. In Jiang He's private room, he could see Feng Chen and the other two walking out with dark expressions through the window. Xiaochen entered deep thought. These three were all on the same level as Shengguan Lei. This was somewhat problematic. But that was all, just somewhat problematic. Jiang He said casually, "Don't mind them. They are just some flies. The true experts of the Soaring Dragon Great Realm are not in Soaring Dragon City." Surprised, Xiaochen asked, "Where are they then?" Jiang He smiled and replied, "The Dragon Flame Ancient Land." Aside from the Soaring Dragon Marquee, the main reason why the Soaring Dragon Great Realm can become the center of the nearby dozens of astral clusters is because of the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. That is a dangerous land that existed when the dragon race was still around. The environment is harsh, and flame beasts roam about. Who knows how many outstanding talents who cultivated bitterly hid there? Only those who killed their way through life and death situations can be called experts. These people are all showy but impractical. They are far from being experts. Dragon Flame Ancient Land. When Xiaochen heard this name again, he felt surprised. If he had a chance, he had to see it for himself. After the two chatted for a while, someone knocked on the door. The headliner Ling Long had finished her preparations and kept her promise, coming to accompany the guests. Ling Long carried a pipa and wore plain clothes as she slowly walked in. When she saw Xiaochen and Jiang He, she bowed respectfully. This performer was indeed extraordinary up close. It was a completely different feeling from looking at her from afar. Jiang He smiled and said, "Miss Ling Long, it was really not easy to invite you here tonight." Ling Long smiled faintly and said, "Duke Jiang, you are exaggerating. This concubine had no choice." Jiang He smiled casually and said, "It's fine. You accompany my brother. I'm going out to relieve myself." When Xiaochen heard that, he felt slightly stunned. Honestly speaking, he somewhat regretted his earlier actions. Xiaochen did not feel much about the pipa that this headliner Ling Long played. He only felt that the music was very profound. It was too unfortunate that she did not finish playing some of the states. A large part of the reason why Ling Long was willing to throw out 2 million medial-grade spirit jades was because she earned them from Jiang He. Ling Long could not bear to see Jiang He humiliated, so she used his spirit jades to help Jiang He regain his face. After Jiang He left, Ling Long looked at Xiaochen and asked, "Young Master Xiao, do you like to listen to the pipa?" Xiaochen did not say anything. Instead, he said calmly, "Miss Ling Long, can you perform the unfinished pipa song that you played on the flower boat in its entirety?" Ling Long felt somewhat surprised. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen made such a simple request. However, Ling Long truly could not fulfill such a request. She said helplessly, "Sorry, I really cannot finish playing this song. The lyrics and music came from the ancients, but it is incomplete and unfinished." Incomplete? No wonder. However, that's fine. If it were the complete song, I would forget it after listening to it. On the contrary, an incomplete song would leave a deeper impression. If I can find the rest of the lyrics and music in the future, I will come and get Miss Ling Long to perform it. When Xiaochen heard that, he felt that it was unfortunate. However, he immediately felt at ease. His mental state was calm. He would not be overly stubborn about many things, able to give and take. Ling Long smiled in her heart. What a strange person. She nodded and said, "If you can find the latter half of this pipa song, you can come to the Yimwu dynasty's capital to look for me." Xiaochen did not know anything about the music Dao. However, headliner Ling Long had a good impression of Xiaochen. As she spoke, she patiently explained things to Xiaochen, allowing him to gain some knowledge. Unexpectedly, the music Dao was similarly vast and profound, no weaker than the saber Dao or the sword Dao. This was Ling Long's first time seeing someone more interested in the music Dao than her. Hence, Ling Long spoke exceptionally seriously. The two chatted happily, practically ignoring Ling Yu and the other maidservants. Aside from bringing pleasure and enjoyment, the music Dao could also kill with sound. Furthermore, it was even more terrifying. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it could kill without leaving a trace. A strong cultivator of the music Dao could even block a vast army with one song, shattering mountains and rivers and causing the world to crumble. However, such strong cultivators of the music Dao were becoming increasingly rare. The reason was none other than the fact that the music Dao was simply too difficult to cultivate. Compared to the saber Dao or the sword Dao, the music Dao had stricter requirements on talent. Furthermore, it needed to be practiced from a young age. After sending off the headliner Ling Long, Xiaochen felt that the 2 million spirit jades he spent was worth it. At the very least, he would have a way to deal with troublesome cultivators of the music Dao in the future, preventing them from happening. After sending off the headliner Ling Long, Jiang He entered the private room. When he saw Ling Long's face beaming with happiness, he exclaimed in shock, "Miss Ling Long, you already left. How unfortunate." Xiaochen thought to himself, "This Jiang He is definitely up to something. I just do not know what he did. I'm leaving. Many thanks to Brother Jiang for the wine. The two of us will be taking our leave as well," Xiaochen said as he and Ling Yu stood up. Jiang He smiled confidently and said, "Let's go. I'll send you off and deal with those 3 pieces of trash while I'm at it. They have probably been waiting for a long time. After leaving the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Jiang He and Xiao Chun were immediately stupefied. They saw more than 100 cultivators with Feng Chun and Yin Yuan in the lead. None of them had low cultivations. These people blocked Xiao Chen's and Jiang He's paths, showing hostile expressions. Jiang He said somewhat helplessly, "I seem to have forgotten that the sects behind these three have a faction in Soaring Dragon City." There were more than 100 primal core venerates and 3 outstanding talents comparable to Shangguan Lei. No matter how Xiao Chen looked at it, he could not win this battle. Chapter 17-19. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. This matter was somewhat unexpected. If it were just Yin Yuan and the other two, Xiao Chen would not fear them at all. If it were just Jiang He and himself, they could easily defeat the other party. However, so many people came at once. Furthermore, they were all primal core venerates. Many of them were even major primal core experts. This would be somewhat difficult. However, it was only a little difficult to deal with. Given that Xiao Chen had a Dao tool, it was practically impossible to stop him. On the other hand, Ling Yu was somewhat problematic. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Ling Yu, return to the pavilion and look for Miss Ling Long, get her to arrange for you to leave." Ling Yu understood the gravity of the matter. He also believed in his martial uncle's strength and did not have to worry about his life. "Martial uncle, take care." Right after Ling Yu spoke, he turned around and returned to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. As for Xiao Chun and Jiang He, they did not think of hiding for now. These people were here for the two of them. Ling Yu's departure would not attract their attention. However, it would not be so easy for Feng Chun and Jiang He to leave. Feng Chun looked at Xiao Chun and said softly, "Xiao Chun, this matter has nothing to do with you in the first place. You can leave now." In Feng Chun's opinion, Xiao Chun had the Purple Flame sect behind him. It was best not to offend him if possible. His main target was Jiang He, the life juice source on him. Feng Chun offended the Cluster Lord and did not have any sect backing him. Furthermore, Feng Chun liked to show off before others. He had already made up his mind to teach Jiang He a lesson in the Soaring Dragon Pavilion. Xiao Chun ignored Feng Chun. Leaving Jiang He behind and leaving on his own was clearly not in line with his character. Furthermore, the life juice source that brought Jiang He disaster happened to come from Feng Chun. Jiang He patted Xiao Chun's shoulder and smiled. "You are indeed a good brother. I did not spend a lot of money to invite you to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion in vain. Let's kill our way out. I'll block these 3 good-for-nothings." Whoosh! Right after Jiang He spoke, he took a step forward and charged towards Feng Chun. "You are seeking death." Feng Chun instantly attacked with the sword in his hand. A strong sword intent slowly spread out and formed a vast sword light. As the sword light pressed down, pung pung pung, the floorboards on the street all exploded and flew in all directions. Smiling faintly, Jiang He unsheathed his saber and pressed down. With a loud boom, all the scattered floorboards shattered into dust. Dang! The saber and sword clashed, giving off a loud sound. Feng Chun was knocked back by the saber strike. When he landed, he revealed a shocked expression. Jiang He smiled faintly. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you that you're a weakling." Feng Chun was enraged. He swung his sword backward and attacked again. At the same time, Yin Yuan and Chen Yin could no longer stand by and watch. They attacked together, the 3 of them completely surrounding Jiang He. The situation immediately became somewhat unfavorable. Although these 3 people were arrogant and despotic, their strength was undeniable. They were all existences on the same level as Shangguan Lei. This was especially so for Feng Chun, who was even more powerful. Xiao Chen hugged his tyrant saber, not in a rush to attack. He wanted to see Jiang He's true strength. Jiang He's situation was ugly in the face of the trio's attacks, but he remained at ease and did not fall into real danger. Jiang He's movement technique was very profound, giving off a familiar feeling. After watching for a while, Xiao Chen suddenly startled to his senses. Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art. That was right. This was a dragon race movement technique, very similar to the Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art. However, it was clearly superior. Jiang He moved around in a small area like a dragon, moving its head and wagging its tail. Together with the saber in his hand, he easily repelled the three's attacks. Jiang He dealt with danger multiple times, always remaining undefeatable. Jiang He smiled and said, "Three weaklings. You are only SOSO even when you work together. You are seeking death. Activate your bloodline and kill him." The three of them were truly enraged, feeling very sullen. Feng Chen was the first to activate his bloodline. Next were Yin Yuan and Chen Yun. The three of them had suppressed many of their peers in the Soaring Cloud Pavilion with their bloodline power. This showed how strong their bloodline power was. Now that they activated their bloodlines at the same time, the Great Desolate Aeon's divine might spread out. They instantly gained a suppressive advantage, forcing Jiang He back step by step. For the first time, a grave expression appeared on Feng Chen's face. At the same time, his eyes flickered with some hesitation. Feng Chen was also someone with a Great Desolate Aeon bloodline. However, he seemed to have some misgivings and did not want to reveal it in public. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. He knew that he could not continue watching and had to make a move. Tyrant Saber, breaking vast armies. The saber moved like a rainbow, and a tyrannical might mixed with the Thunder Great Dao, and the Saber Great Dao spread out in an unparalleled berserk manner. Then it carried Xiao Chen and clashed with the three who activated their Great Desolate Aeon bloodlines. When Jiang He saw this, the grave expression on his face faded somewhat, and he laughed loudly. The saber in Jiang He's hand trembled intensely. In the next moment, it gave off a resplendent saber light and the Great Dao's might. Immediately, the three Great Dao's might merged together. They clashed intensely with the three's Great Desolate Aeon divine might, erupting with startling mysterious phenomena. Without activating their bloodline power, the two completely blocked the three's terrifying Great Desolate Aeon divine might with just their Dao might. In the next moment, both sides exchanged moves. A chaotic battle ensued. Saber light clashed with sword light, saber technique clashed with sword technique, Great Dao's might clashed with the Great Desolate Aeon divine might. Horrifying auras spread out in all directions, attracting countless people to stop and watch. Soaring Dragon City never lacked great battles. However, it was rare to see such a scene between two bladesmen. Two bladesmen actually blocked three people with Great Desolate Aeon bloodlines without activating their bloodlines, and only relying on the saber in their hands. After a while, both sides moved back. Now Xiao Chen and Jiang He stood side by side. Blood leaked out of a corner of their lips, indicating that they were slightly injured. After activating their Great Desolate Aeon bloodlines, their combat prowess increased explosively. Given the three's cultivation, they could approach the strength of a Cloud Sea Star Venerate. Even with the three's Dao might merged, there was still a small gap. However, the two still relied on their exquisite saber techniques to block. Yin Yuan and the other two each had a terrifying saber wound on their bodies. What was even more terrifying was that these wounds contained Dao energy. These wounds could not heal in a short time. Blood gushed out, looking rather terrifying. "What are you staring blankly for? Attack together!" Feng Chen shouted coldly. He no longer dared to clash head-on with Xiao Chen and Jiang He. The 100 venerates behind him raised their weapons and charged at Xiao Chen and Jiang He, who had just clashed. Xiao Chen and Jiang He immediately split up, each fighting in a different direction. A minor primal core venerate with a Dao tool infused with two kinds of Dao might could not block even one saber strike from him. However, a major primal core venerate could not block more than 3 moves. If not for their advantage in numbers and the fact that they were all rank 4 sect disciples, Xiao Chen and Jiang He would have charged out long ago and would not suffer any injuries. Kill. Seeing that the situation was bad, Yin Yuan and the other two took a breather before charging back into battle. This made the situation even more chaotic. There is no end to this. For the first time, killing chi appeared in Jiang He's eyes. He suddenly spun the saber in his hand, and his aura changed drastically. When Jiang He swung his saber, the entire saber turned heavy. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up as he watched, unable to look away. The Dao might all over Jiang He's body vanished. He became one with the saber, and his sharp eyes focused on the saber's edge. After Jiang He swung his saber, the level of space continuously rose, making Xiao Chen feel like he was in the depths of a fiendish demon battlefield. This startled Xiao Chen. This was his first time seeing such a heavy saber technique. It was like lightning flashed in his mind, shocking him to the extreme. He was completely stunned, forgetting about his current situation. Bang! 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 Everywhere the saber light passed, all the venerates blocking it were chopped in half. Then their corpses exploded and turned into pools of blood splattering everywhere. Caught off guard, Yin Yuan and the other two were sent flying by the saber light and vomited blood. They felt like their chests had been struck by a hammer. The heavy blow penetrated deep into their blood vessels and meridians, nearly reaching their sea of consciousness and soul. Sweat continuously poured down Jiang He's forehead as he swung his saber. Then he opened a large opening and immediately fled far away. Let's go. Xiao Chun sheathed his saber and quickly followed. It was not easy for him to open a gap. If this group of people surrounded him again, it would take some effort. Swinging a Dao tool was not an easy task. Yin Yuan and the other two, who had fallen to the ground, paled in fright. However, they did not dare to give chase. They could only watch as Xiao Chun and Jiang He quickly fled into the distance, getting further and further away. The two of them sped all the way out of the city, before coming to a complete stop. After confirming that it was safe, they stopped running. Jiang He panted, but he showed a wide smile on his face. Ah! How delightful! Brother Xiao Chun, although I'm sorry, I still have something to tell you. A thought occurred to Xiao Chun. He knew what Jiang He wanted to say. He smiled helplessly and said, I have something to tell you as well. Chapter 17:20. Confusion appeared on Jiang He's face. After a while he smiled in embarrassment and said, Let me say it first. The dragon pattern cauldron that you auctioned was actually mine. I was the one who pushed the bidding price up from behind the scenes. I'm sorry, brother, I cheated you. Xiao Chun smiled and said, Actually, I knew it long ago. However, it's fine. No matter what, I would have won that cauldron. This startled Jiang He. Then he smacked his forehead and laughed. You are really a fool. I thought that you kept it a secret. Ha ha ha. What Xiao Chun said next really made Jiang He's smile turn from laughter into a bitter smile. The bottle of life juice source that you auctioned was placed there by me. What? Jiang He jumped up in shock, feeling stupefied. The expression on his face was as fascinating as one could imagine. After a while, Jiang He gave Xiao Chun a thumbs up. Then he said depressedly, I was acting stupid earlier. Now I really became stupid. I thought that I owed you, so I specially invited you to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. It turns out that I was the one who gave you money. How pitiful. When Xiao Chun saw Jiang He's expression, he could not help but smile as well. That's all right. In the end, I gave the spirit jades to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, helping you regain your face. Who knew? When Jiang He heard that, he smiled mysteriously. It is indeed all right. Haha. I managed to get back that fairy basket in the end. Right after Jiang He spoke, a flower basket appeared in his hand. This was the mysterious flower basket that the maidservant in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion held. Haha. How can I, Jiang He, suffer losses when I go out? That Smiling Daughter Pavilion wants to cheat me of my money. Dream on. Jiang He felt incredibly cocky. In the end, the spirit jade still ended up in his hands. This time, this truly startled Xiao Chun. It turned out that when he said that he was going out to relieve himself, he was actually going to steal the flower basket. No wonder Jiang He immediately left when he heard that Xiao Chun was leaving. So that was what happened. With the flower basket gone, the performers could not make an appearance. They would definitely suspect the guests. Jiang He used this opportunity to come out and fight with Feng Chen and the others, preventing the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's people from suspecting him. Since he was fighting with someone and in big trouble, how could he be in the mood to steal the flower basket? In an instant he was cleared of suspicion. Xiao Chun smiled helplessly. You're good. Jiang He replied calmly. It's nothing much. I'm taking the spirit jades inside, so you can have the fairy basket. After saying that, he casually threw the fairy basket to Xiao Chun, not caring about it at all. Xiao Chun took it with some astonishment. For me? Jiang He nodded. I've been wandering around for so long, and I haven't really had much to talk to. Today, I accidentally exposed some of my strength in the fierce battle with those people. I have to change places again. Xiao Chun was startled. That dragon pattern cauldron. Could it be that you also stole it from the dragon tribe? Jiang He chuckled awkwardly. Sort of. But, dragging out his words, Jiang He solemnly said, I didn't lie to you about that story. The dragon pattern cauldron was indeed used by the lancet blade. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stolen such an ordinary cauldron. As expected, he had guessed correctly. Xiao Chun smiled bitterly. The lancet blade? Is the lancet blade really that famous? Jiang He said seriously, that is natural. The lancet blade is an outstanding talent of the white dragon race. He has a pure bloodline, reaching rank 7 and above. No one knew about him in the first 30 years. However, the moment he appeared, he shook the entire dragon race. Now he is one of the 10 most talented people of the dragon race's 6 bloodlines. Note the entire dragon race's 6 bloodlines. The lancet blade of the white dragon race. No one knew about him in the first 30 years. However, after he appeared, he shook the entire dragon race. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat, and his body stiffened slightly. He asked uncertainly, is the lancet blade a man or a woman? A woman? What's wrong? The title of the lancet blade comes from her name, Lu Ruyue. He. She is an absolute beauty. Her smile is very flirtatious. Many outstanding talents of the dragon race are interested in her. Unfortunately, for some reason, she even rejected the pursuit of the noble dragon god crown prince. Jiang He spoke tirelessly, engrossed in his story. However, he did not notice that Xiao Chun appeared distracted and his expression changed. Jiang He muttered to himself, I really don't know what the reason is. Is it because she has high standards, or is it because she has devoted herself to the martial Tao and does not want to get involved in relationships for now? Xiao Chun did his best to calm his emotions. Then he asked softly, how is she doing? Haha, an outstanding talent with a boundless future. She is very flirtatious, and everyone revolves around her. Even the dragon god crown prince is infatuated with her. Didn't you say that before? Xiao Chun was slightly stunned. Then he asked sullenly, Dragon god crown prince, is there really a dragon god? Jiang He smiled and explained casually, that is how it is. He is just the son of the current dragon emperor. However, given his status, it is not too much to call him the dragon god crown prince. Oh, it seems like I have said too much. This matter has gone too far. In any case, the lancet blade has no relationship with you. There is no point in saying so much. No relationship? Xiao Chun smiled faintly, and did not say anything more. He looked at Jiang He and said, if I guessed right, you should be a member of the dragon race, right? Tell me about it. Stealing a cauldron that the lancet blade used should not be a heavy crime. What exactly did you steal to make you so nervous? Jiang He's smile did not fade. However, the expression in his eyes was no longer as casual as before. He said seriously, you don't have to worry about that. Actually, a large part of the reason I got close to you at the start was because you were an expert sent by the dragon race. I thought that you were an expert sent by the dragon clan. However, from the looks of it now, I can dispel my worries. Although you have the dragon race's bloodline, it is too thin. Furthermore, you are not from any of the 6 bloodlines. It can only be a coincidence. Xiao Chun entered deep thought. It looked like the other party really had a dragon race treasure on him. It was worth taking the risk. However, Xiao Chun could not bring himself to attack someone he had just fought with. Furthermore, this Jiang He did not reveal himself. However, that stunning saber strike at the end was frighteningly mighty. This is probably the state that senior brother Yi Zifeng mentioned. Xiao Chun held a Dao tool and 2 Mahamaya abstinence violation saber techniques. Even so, he might not be able to take down the other party easily. Who knew what other trump cards the other party had? Xiao Chun tossed a small jade bottle over. Before I leave, here's a gift for you. Jiang He casually caught it and joked. What is it? Could it be poison? 50 kilograms of life juice source. The next time we meet, I might not let you leave so easily. I am not as simple as you think. The connection between me and the dragon race is deeper than you imagine. Letting me know that you have a dragon race treasure is not a smart move, Xiaochen said with a calm expression and a normal tone. Xiaochen was not interested in Jiang He. He was only interested in the dragon race treasure that Jiang He stole. As the last inheritor of the blue dragon bloodline, Xiaochen had promised the old dragon horse and the others that he would become the dragon emperor and revive the blue dragon bloodline. Xiaochen had promised the old dragon horse and the others that he would become the dragon emperor and revive the blue dragon bloodline. Whether Xiaochen was willing or not, he could not feign indifference after learning about the dragon race's treasure. An ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin. Jiang He felt slightly stunned. Then he smiled and said, "That's right. I did not notice earlier that you would rather draw your Dao tool and fight bitterly. Even so, you are not willing to reveal your great desolate Ian bloodline before me. It looks like there really is something more to it. However, you should rejoice that you did not rashly attack me. Otherwise," Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "No one knows what the result will be. However, I am truly grateful to you for the information you told me earlier." Jiang He's eyes gleamed. He discovered that he could no longer figure out this person before him. Interesting. It looks like he really has a trump card to fight me. I'm leaving. I hope that we can meet again. Haha. Whether you attack or not, I am very happy to see you again. Goodbye. Jiang He laughed loudly. Then his figure flashed a few times, vanishing from Xiaochen's sight. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Interesting person." Honestly speaking, aside from the fact that Jiang He had a great treasure, this person was indeed worth befriending. After the smile faded, Xiaochen's face turned sorrowful. He had not expected to learn about Lu Ruyue under such circumstances. She was an outstanding talent with all sorts of charm. Even the Dragon God Crown Prince was captivated by her. Xiaochen took out the dragon pattern cauldron and placed it in it. As he looked at the dragon pattern cauldron that Lu Ruyue once used, many things of the past flashed through his mind. After a while, Xiaochen's gaze turned resolute. As he looked at the saber in his hand, he muttered, "From today on, I will officially call you Sinew." Chapter 1721. After a long time, Xiaochen put away the dragon pattern cauldron. Then he entered deep thought as he looked at the flower basket in his hand. The exterior of the flower basket was exquisite, adorned with all sorts of flowers. Aside from its pretty appearance, there was nothing special about it. However, when Xiaochen saw the wonders of the flower basket in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, he naturally would not treat it as an ordinary flower basket. However, it seemed that its miraculous effect was only a decoration. It looked incredibly gorgeous, filled with flowers and powerful sword dances. These were all things that tempted profligates to throw money at. Some looked impressive, but they were useless. If they were really useful, Jiang He would not have casually tossed them to Xiaochen. Could there be spirit jades in there? I better not think about it. Even if there were, Jiang He would have taken them all. Why would he leave them for me? Never mind, I should refine it first. No matter what, it is a Dao tool after all. When Xiaochen sent his spiritual sense into the flower basket, he immediately felt the world spin around him as if he had entered a maze. Countless exquisite screens were placed in the middle, crisscrossing and looking incredibly complicated. No matter how Xiaochen tried, he could not get out, completely trapped inside. After some thought, Xiaochen increased the strength of his spiritual sense and sent in some soul energy. Xiaochen prepared to force his way through. Rumble! Xiaochen crashed into the screens, breaking one after another. However, the result was that he sank deeper and deeper. It was like there was no end to it. How troublesome! Xiaochen lost his patience, and his spiritual sense directly exploded. Rumble! The entire maze shattered. The screens shattered into pieces like glass and floated in the air. Xiaochen revealed a smile on his face. However, before his smile could spread out, it froze. With a whoosh, all the screen fragments reassembled, turning into a brand new maze that was even larger and more complicated. The more problematic thing was that Xiaochen discovered that he could not pull out this portion of his spiritual sense. Xiaochen was completely trapped inside. He could only escape if he severed it. However, this was Xiaochen's spiritual sense, which involved soul energy. If he severed it, his soul would be affected. Damn it, this is bad. No wonder Jiang He was not greedy. It turned out that Xiaochen already knew that unless he possessed the strength of a Cloud Sea Star Venerate, he would not be able to forcefully break out of this maze and obtain control over this flower basket. It was just a decoration in his hand, completely useless. It couldn't even bring out those mysterious phenomena. What should he do? Xiaochen fell into a dilemma. He could either sever his divine sense and accept his bad luck, and suffer the damage to his soul. At the very least, his life wouldn't be in danger. Or he could continue walking and solve this maze. Hesitation was not Xiaochen's character. He immediately made a decision. Xiaochen cut off his spiritual sense and retreated. Face pale and dizzy, Xiaochen's body swayed for a while. He closed his eyes and covered his head. After resting for a while, Xiaochen barely regained some energy. However, the damage to his soul would require several days to recover. Looking at the flower basket, he smiled bitterly. Before Jiang He left, he had left a hole for himself. He was indeed a very interesting person. He seemed carefree and always had a smile on his face. In reality, he was extremely proud in his heart, unwilling to admit defeat. He was bold but careful. However, Xiaochen did not hate Jiang He, not even close to hating Jiang He. The relationship between the two was more like that of opponents. Jiang He could sense the saber intent in Xiaochen's body and confirm his identity as a bladesman. Jiang He was also present. He immediately saw through the saber intent that the other party hid. Before a true bladesman, that sharpness could not be hidden. When two true bladesmen fought, they would definitely have a competitive mentality. Neither would be willing to admit defeat. While the two did not seem to have any conflicts in reality, they had clashed more than once. In the Soaring Dragon Pavilion, they could be considered to have fought once. Xiaochen caused the other party to suffer a loss, and the other party even treated him to a drink. In the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Jiang He stole the fairy basket without anyone noticing, turning the tables on Xiaochen. Earlier, when the two fought the three, they had purposely held back, wanting to see who would reveal their true trump card in the end. However, neither of them revealed their trump cards, so it was a draw. Like you, I also look forward to meeting you again, whether I attack you or not. A smile appeared on Xiaochen's face. Then he put away the fairy basket and returned to the city to look for Lingyu. In the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, when Xiaochen returned, the place was already deserted, no longer as bustling as before. Xiaochen, who knew the reason, was not surprised. After reporting, he found Lingyu happily drinking tea in a private room. "Martial uncle, why are you back?" When Lingyu saw Xiaochen, he felt greatly startled. Xiaochen smiled and said, "After escaping that group of people, I was afraid that you would worry about me, so I came back to meet you and say goodbye." "Goodbye?" Lingyu felt somewhat shocked. "Martial uncle, you are not returning to the Purple Flame sect?" Xiaochen nodded. "That's right. I plan to remain in the Soaring Dragon Great Realm for a while before returning to the Grave Sea." "How long?" "Maybe half a year, maybe 1 year." Lingyu felt disappointed. However, he understood. His martial uncle's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. It was time for him to go out on experiential training. Furthermore, this Soaring Dragon Great Realm was filled with experts. The truly incredible people of the dozens of astral zones were all here. With martial uncle's strength, this was the most suitable place for experiential training. The Grave Sea was rather small. Lingyu thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. "All right. Martial uncle, something major happened in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion." "Oh, what major matter?" Xiaochen asked despite knowing the answer. Lingyu whispered, "Their fairy basket disappeared. That fairy basket is extremely precious. Without that flower basket, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion cannot continue operating. They need to wait for the headquarters to send a new fairy basket. However, the refinement of the fairy basket is extremely complicated. There are many steps and takes a long time. This Soaring Dragon City's Smiling Daughter Pavilion probably can't continue operating." Ripples appeared in Xiaochen's heart, but he did not show it on his face. Unexpectedly, the matter blew up so much. However, It was impossible for Xiaochen to hand over the fairy basket. Xiaochen kept feeling that this fairy basket still had some mysteries and great value. In any case, it would not be traced back to him. Xiaochen asked softly, "Are there any clues? Who stole it?" Ling Yu shook her head and replied, "No. The person who did it did not leave any traces. This is simply strange. Right now they suspect that a holy venerate did something to it. After all, this Smiling Daughter Pavilion has a Cloud Sea Star venerate guarding it." Xiaochen smiled in his heart. This is a grave mistake. That fellow, Jiang He, could even steal the dragon race's treasure. Furthermore, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's fairy basket was a treasure of the dragon race. There were peak dragon race experts guarding it, at least sovereign personages. Sorry, there was some chaos in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, so I did not receive young Master Xiao personally. As Ling Yu spoke, headliner Ling Long walked in with an apologetic expression on her face. Xiaochen felt embarrassed in his heart. Such sincerity made him feel somewhat embarrassed. However, he definitely could not expose himself now. Xiaochen nodded and said, "It's fine. I heard from Ling Yu that Miss Ling Long has any plans." Ling Long smiled bitterly and replied, "What plans can I have? Naturally, I will return to the imperial capital. One cannot do as one pleases in the mundane world." When Ling Yu heard that, he could not help saying, "Miss Ling Long, how about returning to the Purple Flame sect with me? Given Miss Ling Long's talent, you can definitely become a true inheritor." When Xiaochen heard that, he could not help thinking, she is already used to the bustling world. How can she endure loneliness? In the end, my little martial nephew is still young and does not understand the ways of the world. Ling Long did not deny that. Instead, she smiled at Ling Yu and said, "Thank you, young Master Ling, for your kind intentions. In the future, if I no longer have a place to stay in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, I will definitely remember young Master Ling's words." Ling Yu smiled and said, "No problem. Earlier, Miss Ling Long made arrangements for me without hesitation. Naturally, Ling Yu will do as I say." Ling Long smiled faintly before saying, "I would like to speak with young Master Xiao alone." Ling Yu glanced at his martial uncle curiously before retreating as he was told. After Ling Yu left, Ling Long's expression changed slightly. Then she asked directly, "Your friend stole that fairy basket, right?" Xiaochen's expression did not change, not revealing anything. He looked at Ling Long and asked, "Why do you say that?" "It is just a suspicion. The time he left was too coincidental. It happened to be when the fairy basket was stolen." Ling Long said sullenly, "Don't worry. I did not tell anyone. No one would believe that a major primal core venerate would steal the fairy basket." Xiaochen felt surprised. "Why?" Ling Long replied softly, "To me there is no loss. Furthermore, I sincerely treat young Master Xiao and young Master Ling as friends. I do not want the two of you to get into trouble." Xiaochen felt warmth in his heart. No matter what, as long as Ling Long voiced her suspicions, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion would definitely question him. The Smiling Daughter Pavilion would definitely question him. That would be troublesome. "Many thanks. You're welcome. If we are fated, we will meet again in the Yinwu dynasty's capital." Ling Long bowed and left. As Xiaochen watched the other party leave, he entered deep thought. After Ling Yu entered, he asked, "Martial uncle, what did Miss Ling Long ask you?" Xiaochen did not answer the question. "Do you like this girl?" Ling Yu immediately blushed. "Martial uncle, why do you ask that?" Xiaochen smiled faintly and replied, "Because even a fool can tell that if you like her, you should marry her. Miss Ling Long is a good person." Chapter 1722. When Ling Yu heard Xiaochen's words, he asked somewhat embarrassedly, "Martial uncle, can I?" That Miss Ling Long had seen many marquises and Holy Gate outstanding talents in the royal dynasty's capital, but none of them had moved her heart. "I'm just a core disciple of a small fourth-grade sect. How could I be worthy of her?" There was one more thing that Ling Long did not say. What was even more awkward was that although this Ling Long did not reveal herself, her cultivation was even higher than Ling Yu's. Xiaochen said with a straight face, "How old are you?" You're only in your 20s. Life is like a blank piece of paper, filled with endless possibilities. But if you don't even dare to think about it, then it's really impossible. How could senior brother have such a disciple? Ling Yu felt somewhat powerless to argue. Martial uncle, but Xiaochen said softly. There are no buts or buts. If you don't have the determination, then give up on this thought as soon as possible. If you have the intention, why can't you set this as your goal? You can make your own decision. Everything about Ling Yu was good. However, he was somewhat indecisive and lacked boldness. His innate bloodline was not inferior to anyone. As long as he was willing to work hard, anything was possible in the future. Otherwise, why would Yi Zifeng accept him as his disciple? Martial uncle, I've decided. I'll go see Miss Linglong now and have her wait for me in the imperial capital for 5 years. If she gives me this chance, I will work hard and live up to the 5 years she gave me. If you don't give it to me, I'll give up on this thought. Ling Yu hesitated for a long time before finally making up his mind. He knew that his martial uncle was doing this for his sake. If one does not act decisively, one will fall into chaos. However, as Xiaochen watched Ling Yu turn around and leave, he smiled faintly. He did not believe that Ling Yu truly had the guts to say that to his face. However, he couldn't care too much about this matter. He could only wish him good luck. Indeed, it was as Xiaochen expected. When Ling Yu saw Ling Long in his hot-bloodedness, he was instantly defeated by one look from the other party. Young Master Ling, why are you looking for me? Ling Long blinked as she looked at Ling Yu with a serious expression. Ling Yu immediately calmed down, not daring to look straight at Xiaochen. However, he felt incredibly anxious in his heart. He did not know how to say the words that he had prepared many times. The words were at the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't say them. An awkward expression appeared on his face, and he did not know what to do. After holding it in for a long time, Ling Yu could not think of anything to say. Seeing that he had to say something, he racked his brains and said, Miss Ling Long, I wish to learn the pipa from you. The moment Ling Yu said that, he showed an embarrassed expression. He wished that he could find a hole in the ground and hide in it. Ling Long's eyes widened. She was stunned for a moment before she burst into laughter. What kind of man would want to learn the pipa? Ling Yu immediately felt disappointed. He was still too much of a failure. Compared to his martial uncle, he was far inferior. He did not even have the courage to speak. But just as he was about to say his goodbyes, headliner Ling Long smiled and said, However, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion is closed for this period. I happen to be free, so I will not rush to the imperial capital. Young Master Ling Yu, if you are interested, I can give you some guidance. This was simply joy falling from the sky. Ling Yu's wooden head was stunned for a moment before he reacted, feeling incredibly joyful. Thank you, Miss Ling Long. I'll go buy a pipa now. Overjoyed, she ran out and told Xiaochen what had happened. She couldn't hide the smile on her face. Xiaochen did not know why Ling Yu was so happy. However, as long as his martial nephew was happy, that was enough. In that case, congratulations. You can stay in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion for this period. I'll find another place to cultivate for a while. Don't forget to cultivate as well. Xiaochen patted Ling Yu's shoulder and took his leave. After renting an independent courtyard in Heaven Dragon City, Xiaochen started his preparations to upgrade the Heavenly Flame. Xiaochen casually waved his hand, and the dragon pattern cauldron landed heavily on the ground. As he looked at the dragon pattern cauldron that Lu Ruyue used, a determined expression flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. The words that Xiaochen said to Ling Yu earlier were also meant for himself. If Xiaochen had not made up his mind, he would have given up now. After making up my mind, I will never change it. As long as you are still around, I will not abandon you. Lu Ruyue was an outstanding talent, charming and charming. The dragon god crown prince fell head over heels for her, but she remained unmoved. Lu Ruyue's position in the dragon race put some pressure on Xiaochen. However, it also strengthened his resolve. He needed sufficient capital before he could enter the Central Great Realm and head to Ancestor Dragon City. If he was not strong enough, even if Lu Ruyue did not abandon him, he would feel very uncomfortable. The pride in Xiaochen's heart did not allow him to compromise. Xiaochen shook his head and tossed aside these distracting thoughts. Then he threw a palm strike, and the heavenly flame entered the cauldron. Boom! The heavenly flame burned fiercely. It seemed like Lu Ruyue's face appeared in the flame, making one think about her and think about her. Xiaochen exhaled softly. Then, he placed the dazzling sunlight true flame into the cauldron. Whoosh! Although the dazzling sunlight true flame was of a high rank, it was much weaker than the heavenly flame. The dazzling sunlight true flame looked very mighty. However, it could not cause much of a stir before the heavenly flame. The dazzling sunlight true flame flopped around a few times before dying in the cauldron, slowly being swallowed up by the heavenly flame. Xiaochen firmly controlled the heavenly flame with his mind, slowly swallowing the dazzling sunlight true flame. After half a day, the heavenly flame, which had been crying piteously for food, finished swallowing the dazzling sunlight true flame. The blazing heavenly flame gathered into one spot. Only a light came from the dragon pattern cauldron, shining golden and dazzling. Boom! Just as Xiaochen felt suspicious, the spot of heavenly flame suddenly expanded and burned intensely. A terrifying heat wave surged out, and the air in the surroundings turned dry. The flowers, grass, and trees in the courtyard turned scorched yellow. The ground cracked, and cracks appeared. It's rank 1. Xiaochen's face lit up in joy. The heavenly flame's origin flame finally broke free from its primitive state. Relying on the nourishment of the dazzling sunlight true flame, it reached the limits of rank 1. In that case, I'll add some more fire. Xiaochen did not hesitate to send the purple thunder true flame from the purple thunder divine incantation into the cauldron. The electric flame gathered, and turned into a beam of light that continuously poured into the cauldron. The rank 1 heavenly flame immediately blazed even more fiercely. In the dark night, a strand of golden radiance could be seen rushing into the sky, illuminating the surroundings and making everything bright. Fortunately, there were all sorts of strange things happening in Soaring Dragon City. Experts were everywhere. Occasionally there would be some mysterious phenomena. For example, some outstanding talents cultivating in closed-door cultivation, some old monsters refining medicinal pills, and some experts refining weapons. The mysterious phenomena in the courtyard had not reached a world-shaking level yet, so it did not attract much attention. Xiaochen lit up 5 stars on his 9-star primal core, looking resplendent. The purple thunder divine incantation circulated wildly, continuously draining his veritable essence energy, turning it into the purple thunder true flame, and sending it into the cauldron. With Xiaochen's vast cultivation, he managed to force the absorption of the purple thunder true flame into the cauldron for 1 hour. After that, there was a loud boom, and the flame in the cauldron shrank back to a spot. Having experienced this before, Xiaochen did not dare to rest. He stretched out his hand and formed a barrier, preventing the heavenly flame from causing too much damage. Boom! In an instant, the barrier was burnt to a crisp by the explosion of heavenly fire. Everything that could burn in the courtyard started burning at the same time. The entire building started giving off smoke. When Xiaochen saw the situation, he was startled. All the buildings had restrictions. If they were triggered, it would definitely cause a huge shock wave. Heavenly Snow Divine Flame. Xiaochen stretched out his hand, and a suffocating cold surged out, instantly sealing the heat waves in ice. Pure white snowflakes drifted down from the burning courtyard. In one breath of time, they turned into ice, filling the place with frost. It's rank 2 now. Xiaochen muttered to himself as he looked at the heavenly flame in the cauldron. However, he did not show much joy on his face. Originally, Xiaochen had expected to be able to break through to rank 3. Now it looked like the heavenly snow divine flame completely suppressed the heavenly flame. Yin and Yang could not balance. He definitely could not form the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram. In the end, it was all for naught. After withdrawing the heavenly flame, Xiaochen frowned heavily. He entered deep thought and muttered, "It looks like I can only think of another way. Perhaps there would be such an opportunity in the Dragon Flame ancient land." The moment Xiaochen heard the name, he knew that it had something to do with fire. However, there was no need to go now. There were more important things to do. The greatest use of the dragon pattern cauldron was not for the heavenly flame to consume flames. It was for Xiao Chun to cultivate the dragon race's body-tempering cultivation technique. The divine dragon body-tempering art that the blood-soaked dragon emperor gave Xiao Chun needed a good cauldron. A dragon race cauldron would be even better. Back when Xiao Chun bought the dragon pattern cauldron, one of his main considerations was to cultivate this divine dragon body-tempering art. Chapter 1723. Divine Dragon Body Tempering Art. There were a total of 9 layers. Not only did they cultivate vital qi, but they also remolded their physical bodies to that of the ancient dragon clan. This allowed the fleshly body to reach the physical strength of the ancient dragon race, possessing a strong bloodline, a terrifying defense, and a resilient physique. The first layer was to cultivate the dragon tendons, making the meridians as strong as the real dragon tendons. That way, they would be able to withstand more vital qi surging through the meridians. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to use his powerful vital qi. Xiao Chun knew that using vital qi harmed the body. Back in the Kunlun realm, he had damaged his body, resulting in a huge hidden danger. The body and bones were always the foundation of a martial artist. They could be tempered and risk their lives, but they absolutely could not leave behind any hidden injuries. The second level was to cultivate the dragon bone, which was to cultivate the bones of one's entire body to resemble the bones of a dragon. The skeleton was the main frame of the fleshly body. It was also the main protective layer of the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. As long as the skeleton was injured, the heart, liver, gallbladder, spleen, and other important parts of the body could be further injured. Although after becoming a perfected being, one would no longer have a mortal body, and the recovery ability of one's physical body would be very strong. It could even reach the stage of regrowing severed limbs. However, if the heart was instantly crushed, it could still cause fatal damage to the cultivator. After all, it was impossible to grow a new heart without a few months. Of course, there were some special cultivation techniques that could reconstruct the heart in a short period of time. However, there were only a few of them. These kinds of cultivation techniques were also quite rare, and ordinary martial artists could not buy them at all. By cultivating the divine dragon body tempering art's second layer, one could modify their bones, making their bones as strong as the ancient dragon races. It could allow a martial artist to withstand more damage and protect their internal organs from fatal injuries. The third layer was the cultivation of dragon blood. Only with this layer could one be considered to have reached the next level and officially begin to cultivate qi. As the saying goes, qi and blood boil, qi and blood are inseparable, and there is vitality in the blood. Bloodlines were the source of energy. Especially after awakening the blue dragon bloodline, he could take advantage of this point. To any cultivator with a great desolate Ian bloodline, the power of their bloodline would forever be an inexhaustible treasure trove. They would not give up on any method to develop their bloodline power. Any natural treasure that could unearth the potential of one's bloodline would be sold for an astronomical price. This was the reason why the life juice source was so revered. There was a total of 6 more layers. They were all in Xiao Chun's mind, personally passed down by the blood-soaked dragon emperor. With just a thought, all sorts of information about the divine dragon body tempering art would appear in his mind. If one wanted to cultivate the divine dragon body tempering art, one needed a cauldron, an ancient cauldron. In ancient times, cauldrons were revered. They sought to conquer the world, and the cauldron stood on the ground. One had to observe its form, feel its meaning, and comprehend its soul. Xiao Chun sat cross-legged. His eyes lit up as he looked at the dragon pattern cauldron. The dragon pattern cauldron was a square cauldron with 4 legs. It was squarish and had sharp edges. The surface of the cauldron was painted with vivid and lifelike dragon patterns. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that it was a dragon swimming within the cauldron. The dragon pattern cauldron that came from the dragon clan was indeed more suitable for Xiao Chun. Not long after, he felt the will of the real dragon in the cauldron. The image of a primordial true dragon appeared in Xiao Chun's mind. It soared through the clouds and stirred up the rain. As it breathed, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The might of a primordial true dragon imprinted itself in Xiao Chun's mind, inspiring a desire to worship it, and not to profane its divine might. Xiaochen calmed his mind and meditated on its soul, comprehending its spirit. Soon, he entered a state where he forgot about himself and the world. That was the will of an ancient true dragon. The will of an primordial true dragon imprinted itself in the depths of Xiaochen's mind and wandered about freely. Without Xiaochen noticing, the dragon pattern cauldron had already merged into his body without him noticing. The sky was above, and the earth was below. There was an insurmountable chasm between heaven and earth. Xiaochen used his body as the cauldron and the dragon's soul as the will, connecting the sky above and the earth below. The cauldron stood between heaven and earth, connecting heaven and earth, merging into one. The power of heaven and the power of earth merged into the dragon pattern cauldron. After the dragon pattern cauldron modified it, it turned into dragon energy that flowed in Xiaochen's body. At this moment, the first layer of the divine dragon body tempering art circulated naturally. Under the modification of the dragon energy, the meridians in Xiaochen's body slowly changed. Because Xiaochen had already condensed the blue dragon war body long ago, he did not have a follow-up cultivation technique, and had been stuck at a standstill. Now that Xiaochen formally cultivated the divine dragon body tempering art, it went very smoothly, practically without any obstacles. In merely 4 hours, the pure dragon energy formed by the might of heaven and earth circulated a minor cycle in Xiaochen's body. Half a day later, Xiaochen had completed 18 minor cycles. 3 days later, he successfully completed a major cycle. Xiaochen heaved a sigh of relief and slowly opened his eyes. He felt comfortable all over, and his meridians felt strong and powerful. He clenched his fist and gathered 4 cauldron force in his body. Xiaochen flicked his finger, and 4 cauldron force gathered at his fingertip. Buzz. Space trembled, and the dust on the surfaces of all the objects in the courtyard fell off. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It was like fine snow had fallen, spreading everywhere. A spiral-shaped ripple spread out from where Xiaochen's fingertip touched, dissipating in waves. Xiaochen felt some pain in his meridians. Bursting out 4 cauldron force at his fingertip within a short time was somewhat unbearable. However, this was already a great improvement. In the past, Xiaochen would not have dared to use 4 cauldron force so crazily, erupting it in an instant. Then Xiaochen closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged, continuing to cultivate. 1 month later, Xiaochen opened his eyes again. He had succeeded in cultivating the divine dragon body tempering art's first layer. Next up was continuous accumulation. As Xiaochen's cultivation increased, his dragon veins would improve as well. Right now, the meridians in his body had undergone a complete transformation, turning into dragon veins. Furthermore, he had unexpectedly gained 1 cauldron force. Xiaochen's total vital qi improved further, reaching 5 cauldron force. With a gentle tap, he could make 5 cauldron force explode at the same time. Explode! Suddenly, Xiaochen shouted and pointed. 5 ancient cauldrons appeared above his head, and the energy at his fingertip instantly exploded. Boom! Vital qi burst out. Everything that stood in front of Xiaochen's line of sight turned into dust. When the wind blew, it disappeared without a trace. Not only did the meridians not feel any pain, but they also moved with ease, far from reaching their limits. Xiaochen entered deep thought. He felt that it was somewhat wasteful to use only 5 cauldron force in these meridians. Could I use the sharp spirit finger like I did in the Kunlun realm, to merge my veritable essence energy into my vital qi? The primordial energy in the Kunlun realm was far from comparable to the veritable essence energy that could burst out after the primal core was formed through the harmonization of yin and yang. Furthermore, what Xiaochen condensed was a 9-star primal core. His veritable essence energy was even denser and denser. After thinking hard for a while, Xiaochen entered closed-door cultivation again. After lighting up 5 stars on the 9-star primal core, it is already equal to the veritable essence energy of a peak major primal core cultivator. If I gather all my veritable essence energy into one spot, the destructive power would be no weaker than 5 cauldron force. Xiaochen was somewhat worried that his newly transformed dragon veins would not be able to endure it. The more important thing was that once he executed the sharp spirit finger, he would use all his vital qi and veritable essence energy, leaving nothing behind. The explosive power was not as simple as 1 plus 1. Instead, it was multiplied. Xiaochen pondered the pros and cons. If the dragon tendon was damaged, it would be very difficult to recover. The gains did not make up for the losses. Actually, using the sharp spirit finger to attack was not worth it. Once executed, it would drain veritable essence energy and vital qi for a short time. This was his trump card. If the enemy did not die, he would be the one to die. Therefore, after Xiaochen learned the sharp spirit finger, he rarely used it, because he didn't like to put himself in a hopeless situation. After executing the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber techniques, breaking the mundane, and resolving the mundane, Xiaochen did not end up in such a sorry state. The efficiency of the sharp spirit finger was too low. It was of little value. It was useless, and there were not many chances for it to be used. Once it was used, it meant that Xiaochen had to fight with his life on the line, and he was already in a desperate situation. It would be a pity to abandon it, but it was still a killing move that could give him a chance to survive in a desperate situation. Could he modify it, and turn it into a more efficient conventional move? As soon as he thought about it, he couldn't stop it. In the end, after thousands or tens of thousands of attempts, he failed. I keep thinking of using the sharp spirit finger to attack. Why have I never thought of using it for defense? With a change of thought, all sorts of ideas appeared. This made Xiaochen, who was somewhat numb to failure, excited again. My defensive means are limited in the first place. I can't condense my strongest defensive martial technique, the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram, for now. Indeed, I need a defensive martial technique that I can use more frequently. How should I modify it? Xiaochen thought hard. However, he rejected all sorts of ideas. Just when he felt that he had run out of ideas, Xiaochen glanced around and saw the dragon pattern cauldron on the ground in front. The cauldron stood on 4 legs, not moving at all. Just the simple cauldron's existence gave off a Tao, making one think deeply about it. Xiaochen revealed a smile on his face. Cauldrons are revered, cauldrons are precious. Cauldrons stand tall, and seek the world. The wisdom of the ancients is actually all concentrated on this seemingly simple cauldron. To think that I ignored such a good reference before me. I am really stupid. No matter how strong the wind was or where it came from, the cauldron did not move at all, looking as majestic as a mountain. However, it was even more majestic than a mountain, more vivid and simpler. This was how the great Tao was simple. Why don't I use my body as a cauldron, my head supporting the sky and my feet standing on the ground? When the sky changes color and the wind blows in all directions, I will remain unmoving, watching the wind rise and clouds churn, listening to the surging waves, remaining unchanged to deal with all changes. After finding his direction, Xiaochen entered closed-door cultivation again. This time, his thoughts became clearer and more lively. In a mere 7 days, he had thought clearly about how to change the sharp spirit finger. Xiaochen stood up and silently circulated his energy for the sharp spirit finger. His vital qi surged, and 5 ancient cauldrons appeared above his head. 5 stars lit up on his 9-star primal core, and he drove all his veritable essence energy. Veritable essence energy and vital qi merged. Immediately, a strong aura burst out of Xiaochen's body, equal to that of a peak major primal core realm cultivator, and infinitely close to that of a star venerate. However, the energy did not flow to his fingertip. Instead, it poured into his entire body, freezing him like an ancient cauldron. His entire body, including his blood, froze. As his aura spread out, it even affected the surrounding space, freezing it completely. It was like time stopped flowing. At this moment, not a single strand of Xiaochen's hair moved. In the courtyard, Xiaochen looked very foolish. However, at this moment, even a star venerate would not be able to knock him back. Scatter. Such a situation could not last for long. Xiaochen held 2 fingers together and gently waved them. The frozen space immediately broke, and cracks appeared on the ground. In the next moment, countless pieces of cracked soil soared into the air. Chapter 1724. Using the body as a cauldron, the ultimate skill was reborn. The sharp spirit finger had obtained a new application method. It had changed from an offense to a defense. Furthermore, he managed to make use of the newly grown dragon veins in his body. After cultivating in seclusion for 2 months, he had indeed gained a lot. When Xiaochen saw this, he revealed a smile. However, such a commotion is too great. It will waste a lot of quintessence and vital qi. I have to properly sculpt it, or else I won't be able to use it frequently. Xiaochen was very satisfied with the new sharp spirit finger. With this consummate skill, he would be able to face strong enemies much more easily in the future. After cultivating in seclusion for another month and concentrating on cultivating the new telepathic finger, Xiaochen finally stepped out of the dilapidated courtyard gate. After leaving the room, Xiaochen started to inquire about the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. Before entering closed-door cultivation, Xiaochen had already made up his mind to go to the Dragon Flame Ancient Land next. Cultivating in closed-door cultivation was mostly to prepare for the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. He still didn't know what kind of dangers there would be, so it was undoubtedly better to strengthen his strength in advance and make sufficient preparations. There were many places in the city where one could ask for information. The Dragon Flame Ancient Land was not a secret forbidden land. Xiaochen spent some spirit jades and quickly obtained the information he wanted. Before he finished looking, he left the city, preparing to rush to the Dragon Flame Ancient Land. Along the way, he sensed a few weak auras staring at him, not letting go. He had hidden himself very well, but his spiritual sense was sharp, so he had still discovered some clues. Strange, 3 months have passed. Could it be that Feng Ji and his people still haven't given up? Perhaps it was because Xiaochen's cultivation of the divine dragon body tempering art caused a huge commotion, attracting the attention of some experts. No matter which aspect it was, Xiaochen secretly kept an eye on it. Xiaochen's expression did not change as he carried the information about the Dragon Flame Ancient Land out of the city. After leaving the city gates, Xiaochen casually waved his hand, and the mutated flood dragon on the cycle throne turned into a tall black dragon horse. The black dragon horse whipped the horse. Amid the churning dust, it galloped like lightning. After walking for an hour, Xiaochen suddenly stopped. A group of people had appeared in front of him, blocking his path. The person leading the group was Feng Feng of the Heavenly Profound Gate. However, Yin Yuan and Yin Yuan were not present. Instead, the disciples of the Flowing Cloud sect and the Thunderflame Fortress appeared behind Feng Feng. Xiaochen, will take turns guarding you for 3 months. This young master really doesn't have time to play with you. What a pity, you came out now. Feng Chen looked at Xiaochen. The murderous intent in his eyes seemed solid, and the flames of hatred looked like they would spew out at any moment. He wished he could kill Xiaochen on the spot. Scanning the surroundings with his spiritual sense, Xiaochen got off his horse and said coldly, "Loser, are you here to die?" "Humph, even if you have great abilities, you will die here today." Clang. The sword in his hand was unsheathed, and a cold light shot out from the tip of the sword. It was dazzling, and frost covered the ground, freezing everything within 100 feet. The sword came fast, ruthless, decisive, and without any fancy moves. Feng Chen relied on his cultivation, his comprehension of the sword Dao, and his state of the will of ice to thrust his sword forward. The timing he chose happened to be the moment Xiaochen got off his horse. It had to be said that Feng Chen had very sharp eyes. The cold qi mixed with the sword intent turned into a solid wind that blew at Xiaochen's face, making his long hair flutter. The sword wind caused Xiaochen's hair to flutter, and the frost dyed it white, causing it to flutter wildly behind him. Whoosh! However, the wind suddenly seemed to stop. Xiaochen's fine black hair did not move. Time seemed to stop flowing, and space froze. Xiaochen stretched out 2 fingers and gently caught the tip of Feng Chen's sword. Xiaochen easily caught the sword that shot over at an extremely fast speed, not moving at all. No matter how much force Feng Chen used, he could not advance an inch. Even after using all the veritable essence energy in his body, he could not pull the sword out. Feng Chen revealed an extremely shocked expression. Horror spread in his heart, and he immediately panicked. Damn it! How can it be like this? My sword strike was fast and ruthless. Although I did not use a martial technique, it should not be something that can be caught with 2 fingers. Could it be that Xiaochen already possesses the strength of a star venerate? Only the Cloud Sea Star Venerate can catch my sword strike so easily. That is impossible. Kasie. The state of using one's body as a cauldron, supporting the sky with one's head and feet on the ground, suddenly scattered. Xiaochen gently shook his 2 fingers. The veritable essence, energy and vital qi, that were driven by the sharp spirit finger, surged out together with the tip of the sword. The sword in Feng Chen's hand quickly trembled and flew out of his hand. The force spread out, and Feng Chen's entire body trembled as he went flying. He felt like his bones were about to fall apart. At this moment, Xiaochen's clothes and his fine black hair fluttered in the cool breeze. The frost on his fine black hair drifted down like snowflakes. As he stood there, Xiaochen looked indescribably handsome and elegant. Feng Chen, your martial arts are really regressing. You can't even block 2 of my fingers. Seeing Feng Chen fall to the ground, Xiaochen mocked coldly. Senior brother. The group of disciples behind quickly helped Feng Chen up. As they looked at Xiaochen, horror flashed in their eyes. Xiaochen looked around and said indifferently, Senior, are you not coming out? Are you preparing to collect the corpse? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A figure flashed in the distance, appearing on a nearby tree. Then, with another flash, he landed in front of Xiaochen. Martial uncle, you must kill him. Feng Chen immediately shouted when he saw this person appear. Xiaochen narrowed his eyes slightly. It turned out that a Cloud Sea Star Venerate brought out the senior of his sect. No wonder this Feng Chen dared to block me alone. After verifying that it was just a Star Venerate, Xiaochen relaxed. The matter was not as serious as he thought. Right now, Xiaochen was no longer the Xiaochen who had just arrived at the Blessed Land, unable to retaliate when he ran into a Star Venerate. Furthermore, this white-haired old man before Xiaochen was far weaker than the Black Lotus Church's protector. This person was probably only an early-stage Star Venerate. The white-haired old man looked at Xiaochen and said indifferently, Hand over the Dao tool in your hand, and you can leave. Xiaochen smiled faintly. I was wondering why you would send out your Dao tool. However, you are not qualified. Instead of getting angry, the white-haired old man laughed. Don't think that I did not see through your earlier trick. Don't try to act mysterious before a Star Venerate. Some tricks might be impressive before the juniors, but they are not sufficient before this old man. Hand over the Dao tool obediently. Clearly, the old man was referring to the sharp spirit finger, which caught Feng Chen's sword with 2 fingers. Xiaochen revealed a meaningful smile as he said indifferently, If you want it, I'll give it to you. Xiaochen waved his hand, and the tyrant saber, which had been renamed Moon-Seeking, flew towards the white-haired old man. No one had expected such a scene. The Dao soldier had also successfully attracted everyone's attention, including the white-haired old man. Divine Lightning Eye. Xiaochen instantly executed the Divine Lightning Eye's 4th layer. 10 thunderclouds immediately appeared in the sky, each containing a bolt of tribulation lightning. The 10 purple petals in the Divine Lightning Eye quickly spun and merged into a complete purple flower. At this moment, the tribulation clouds also gathered. However, their target was not the white-haired old man but Feng Chen. By the time the white-haired old man noticed this, it was already too late. A thick bolt of tribulation lightning struck Feng Chen. When the lightning landed on Feng Chen's body, it gave off a loud sound. Electric light flashed, and the nearby cultivators were blasted into a mangled mess. The white-haired old man, who had grabbed the tyrant's saber in the air, turned his head and happened to see this scene. He could not help turning pale with fright. Martial nephew. Who could have imagined that Xiaochen would use such a strong killing move on Feng Chen instead of the white-haired old man? The dust scattered, and Feng Chen appeared with a weak expression. The protective treasure that the sect gave him had saved his life at the crucial moment. Feng Chen was only severely injured and did not die on the spot. The white-haired old man relaxed. His gaze turned cold as he turned his head to look at Xiaochen, radiating killing qi. However, the white-haired old man only saw an afterimage burning with purple light. When the white-haired old man looked back, he saw Xiaochen taking advantage of the instant the white-haired old man turned his head to arrive beside Feng Chen. Xiao gently lifted Feng Chen up and grabbed him. The white-haired old man immediately felt irritated. This Xiao actually managed to fool him. His face turned extremely sullen, looking extremely scary. Junior, let him go immediately. Otherwise, the heavenly profound gate will make sure you die a tragic death. Xiao grabbed Feng Chen's neck and used his veritable essence energy to lock down Feng Chen's meridians. Then he looked at the white-haired old man and exerted some force with his right hand. He smiled coldly and said, "Interesting. To think that you dare to threaten me. Martial uncle, save me. I don't want to die." Feng Chen, who had just barely survived the tribulation lightning, immediately fell into Xiao hands. Death enveloped him, scaring him out of his wits. Aside from surviving, Feng Chen did not have any other thoughts. When the white-haired old man heard that, he felt stifled. Most of his arrogance immediately vanished. As he looked at the Dao tool in his hand, he sighed. The younger generation will surpass us in time. This old man admits that I underestimated you. Let him go. And I am willing to swear to let you go. I will also return the Dao tool to you. It's too late, Xiao said coldly. Then, the veritable essence energy that entered Feng Chen's body exploded. From the inside out, Feng Chen's body exploded into pieces right in front of the white-haired old man. He could not be more dead. Xiao had never been a kind-hearted gentleman. After being bullied time and time again, how could he still be merciful? From the moment Feng Chen appeared before Xiao already wanted to kill him. Feng Chen had to die. You. Such a bloody and terrifying scene appeared before the white-haired old man, angering him so much that his entire body trembled. He was a star venerate, yet a junior actually killed his martial nephew right in front of him. Furthermore, even after the white-haired old man gave in, Xiao still showed no mercy, decisively killing Feng Chen. If the white-haired old man had not been greedy and had not tried to grab that Dao tool, how could Xiao have stood a chance? However, when the white-haired old man thought of this, if all this was part of this junior's plan, then it would be too terrifying. Xiao had calculated every step and thought of how to kill Feng Chen long ago. How dare you? Your Dao tool is in my hands. Let's see how you are going to overturn the situation today. The white-haired old man flew into a rage. He unleashed his aura at full power, wanting to use his star venerate strength to subdue the tyrant saber and forcefully draw it. However, the white-haired old man was somewhat shocked to discover that he could not draw the tyrant saber. That's not right. Even if it is a superior grade Dao tool, the aura of a star venerate should be enough to suppress it. Why can't I draw it? Xiao revealed a mocking smile. He leaped into the air and stretched out his hand. The tyrant saber flew out of its scabbard and into his hand, breaking the mundane. While the white-haired old man was still feeling uncertain, Xiao instantly executed breaking the mundane. A Buddhist swastika appeared on the white-haired old man's forehead. When he looked up, he immediately sank into a memory deep in his heart. By the time he startled awake, the 3-kilometer-long saber light was already within reach. Cassier. The white-haired old man retaliated with all his might. However, this saber strike still broke several of his ribs. The white-haired old man vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back. The scabbard in his hand also fell off. Xiao stretched out his hand and waved, snatching back the scabbard. A saber light flashed, and the saber returned to its scabbard. As the white-haired old man stabilized himself, he said indifferently, "The so-called star venerates are merely SSO." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.